Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists episode 600. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Guys, I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yeah,
Great.
this will be fun.
Yeah, I really had fun last week ranking the first 50 of our top 600.
Sure.
To wrap it up today.
Yeah. I'm excited about it too.
I can
Can't
tell,
wait.
James, your excitement meter is off the charts.
I actually watched one of my movies that's in this stretch for this episode this past week.
Oh.
I also watched 2 Criterion movies this week.
Ooh, what'd you watch?
I watched M and I watched In the Heat of the Night.
Oh, those are, I think, 2 movies we recommended to you
I think so.
from your Criterion collection. Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick, like one sentence thoughts on M.
Good.
Okay.
That's not a sentence.
That's a word.
It could be a sentence.
We need a subject and a verb.
M is good.
Okay.
That's a sentence.
All right. And then how about Heat of the Night?
Heat of the Night. I really liked. It's a little hokey at times, but I didn't dislike it for sure. I really like the soundtrack on In the Heat of the Night, like the bluesy themes with like Ray Charles writing the actual theme song with like the title of the movie in the theme song and stuff like that. It was really good. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Worthwhile watches, I would say.
Well, I know Zach and I have both seen both of those.
Nothing that would make my top 600 or anything, but
Yeah. What if one of those major top 600 and the whole thing was reshuffled? You're like, oh, man.
I mean, as long as it landed somewhere between 550 and, 551, it would have counted.
When you guys were making this list, did you have a cutoff date where if it was a movie you saw a week ago or a week before you made the list, would you include it? Or was this like, it has to have some time to percolate before it makes on a list?
No cutoff date.
No cutoff date. Okay.
No.
Did you?
I generally don't consider. No, I would say I did not have a cutoff date. I try and do ones that maybe I saw a couple months ago, just so I had some chance to see if I actually remember them and like them as much as I did.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, because I also needed to pad out to 600 movies, I was grabbing anything I could.
Nice.
Sure.
Yeah. Beggars can't be choosers.
Agreed. Well, this is a part 2 of a 2-part sequence of episodes of a now 12-part series on this podcast, counting down our favorite 600 movies.
Wouldn't it be part 2 of a 6-part series?
Yeah. So we've had this conversation on episode 500.
Have we?
And yes, and I believe Zach and I were on the side of this would be now part 6. No, what did we say? We said this is part 2
of the 6th installment.
Of the 6th installment. That's where we came down on. Yes.
I'm fine with that. Part 2 of the 6th installment of our favorite movie series, counting down our top 600 favorite movies. Thank you for joining us. If you need any catch up, there'll be links in the show notes to every episode covering all other 550 movies that will not be mentioned as a part of the 600 this evening, or this recording rather. So we're going to count down. Last week we counted down our top 600 to 551. In this episode, we're going to count from 550 all the way down to 501, thus completing our top 600.
Let's get into it. I'm excited. This is going to be good.
Let's do it.
Got
Before
some
we
good
jump
movies
into
on
it,
my list.
I need to remind people there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go check it out, youtube.com/symbol Cinereelists. Also, you could find us via email at heyguys@cinereelists.com. Send us an email with a question, comment, list suggestion, movie suggestion, maybe your top 600 list, or maybe just a top 100. But if you have 600, certainly send us that list as well. You could also leave us an Apple Podcast review, 5 stars only. We would appreciate that. Or check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Get extra after show audio amongst other Cinereelist swag. We appreciate all those things. With that being said, these episodes are typically long because we're potentially talking about 150 unique movies over the course of the next few hours. So we're going to get as right into it as we think is possible. Let's get to it.
Let's rank some movies.
I'll go first. My number 550 is 2001's Ghost World. This is a quirky comedy from the early 2000s starring Thora Birch and Steve Buscemi. Also, a very young Scarlett Johansson is in the mix as well. It's about an inappropriate relationship, I would say, between 2 teenage girls and Steve Buscemi. Maybe not the actor, but his much older character. And it's an odd one. It's not completely politically correct, both in the May-December relationships that are happening, but also in some of the depictions of other of minorities, just because of some of the music they talk about and stuff like that. But overall, if you like quirky indie comedies from 20 odd years ago, Ghost World is definitely one of the betters in the conversation. My number 550.
Would it be fair to say that Scarlett Johansson is more famous than Jennifer Lawrence and Margot Robbie?
Would it be fair to
Right
say,
now?
Yeah.
Are we in this moment?
In this moment.
would it be fair to say that Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah.
No,
I
'cause
would like to say that, but I'd also like for Zach to give us his 550. And
I just want a quick yes or
I'm going
no.
to choose this back half of that. Just tell
I
us
just
your
want a quick
550.
yes or no, not a restatement of the question and
No.
then a dodge.
I'm not taking the bait.
All right, Kyle, what do you think?
based on the data that we saw a couple weeks ago, I still think Margot Robbie is maybe the most popular actress in this moment.
I said more famous. He didn't say popular. But
Fine.
let's keep going. Go, go, go.
My number 550 is All About Eve from 1950. Directed by Joseph Mankiewicz, starring Betty Davis and Ann Baxter. This is a classic movie about, an understudy for aging Broadway star, and she's kind of like conniving and like trying to edge her way into the main role. And it won a ton of Academy Awards, all of which it deserves because it's just a really great kind of, I don't know if thriller is the right way to say it, but it's just like this movie about like, characters and betrayal and like paranoia, and it's really good. So it's called All About Eve. A lot of movies have like played around with the themes of All About Eve since.
Yeah, that's a great choice. I like it. Also a Marilyn Monroe cameo in that movie before she was as popular as she became.
That's true.
Yeah, very brief appearance from her. All right. So I'm going to kind of refresh this from last week in case people did not listen to last week. But if I get to a movie that used to be in my top 500 that got pushed into my top 600 because of new movies that I liked more, then I will briefly mention the movie in its current spot and then talk about the new movie that got added to the list. So in this case, my 550 is Goldfinger, the James Bond movie, which is my old 488. So the movie that pushed it up is my new 459, which is Sanjuro from 1962. This is a Akira Kurosawa film. This is a samurai movie. It's starring his muse, Toshiro Mifune. This movie is a kind of a sequel to Yojimbo. Mifune's playing more or less the same character as he did in Yojimbo. In this case, his name is Sanjuro. He is a Ronin samurai who comes upon a village that is having a clan war. And he teams up with a group of young warriors to help sort out this clan war. And him being the more experienced samurai is kind of guiding them through how to play both the politics and how to use violence when necessary. This is a really fun movie. This kind of felt like a four corners action movie of the time, or four market, whatever the term I'm trying to think of. Four quadrant, that's the word. Where there is action, there is intrigue, there is comedy. It kind of gives you everything, and it's a super easy watch. And the ending is, I would call it Tarantino-esque if Tarantino was alive when this movie came out. I'm not sure if he was or not, but I imagine he saw this movie and was highly influenced by the final moments of it.
Yeah, great movie.
Haven't seen it, but it sounds good.
Totally should. It's totally watchable.
Okay. Cool. Another watchable movie, my number 549. This is Rear Window from 1954. Another Hitchcock film added to this sequence of 100 films we're adding to our list. This one I watched on a recommendation, possibly from Zach or a listener. I don't remember, but I don't think I was motivated to watch this on my own. Somehow the podcast had an influence on it, and I ended up enjoying it. I mean, what's not to enjoy, right? Kind of like a single location thriller where one weirdo is spying on his neighbors and sees things he probably shouldn't see, and then tries to do something about it. Or I don't know if he's trying to do something about it, but something is done about it. And yeah, it's just kind of a strange whodunit mystery film with this kind of like setting / filmmaking hook that I enjoyed quite a bit.
Great. Well, my 549 is The Taking of Pelham 123 from 1974. This stars Walter Matthau and Robert Shaw, and it's kind of like a 70s version of Speed. Some hijackers take over a New York City subway and say, if you don't pay us $1 million, we're going to kill every hostage on the train. And so Walter Matthau, who's an actor that like I normally don't think too much about, it has to like figure out how to save the hostages before the hour deadline is over. And it's just a really good, tense 70s thriller. And I had a great time watching it. And I like that kind of gritty New York 70s thriller. So The Taking of Pelham 123. They made a sequel of it, but I don't remember what I thought of it.
Was it called The Taking of Pelham 124?
I don't think it was a
1, 2, 3.
sequel. I think it was a
remade
remake.
it.
A remake. That's what I mean.
Travolta. Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, was it John Travolta? I thought it was, in my mind, it was not John Travolta.
I could be. Is it? I want to say John Travolta, but I'm not going to stand by that.
John Travolta's the bad guy in it. He's one of the bad guys.
Is Denzel Washington the good guy?
No.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
there
know
you
who
go.
the good guys are.
If only we had the internet right now.
If
All right.
only.
My 549 is a movie that actually you both recommended to me. This is a movie that you had both seen, I had not. So I watched it for the podcast. This is a documentary from 1990 called Paris is Burning. This movie is about the drag ball scene in New York City, Harlem's neighborhood. Drag balls were these events where people from the LGBTQ community could dress up in elaborate costumes and have these, runway off competitions. There was dancing, voguing, if you are familiar with that, came from this scene. Throwing shade, that term came from this scene. And it really was a safe space for gay people of color to express themselves. It's a really fascinating documentary. It's very real, where they're talking to people in the moment who are in the scene. And a lot of them have really challenging lives ahead of them. And it kind of follows these people through the ups and downs. And it's a great, if you just want to see people trying to live in their environment and be themselves in a hostile world, it's a really great documentary.
Yeah,
I agree.
Great movie.
Highly recommended for sure. Before I get into my 548, I need to make an apology. The Taking of Pelham 123 from 2009 does star Denzel Washington.
Hey. He's such a
And
good actor.
It also stars John Travolta. By the bad guy, it means he's one of the hijackers, essentially. Like the lead hijacker. But yeah, between Denzel and John Travolta, there are a couple of bad boys, which lines up perfectly with my number 548. Bad boys. Zach, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
Never.
This is from 1995. It's a Michael Bay movie. I'm sure if you haven't seen it, you've certainly heard of it. I don't remember a single thing about this movie. It exists in my brain just under the power of the charm of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. I enjoyed them in the movie. I enjoy them when they're together on screen. And yeah, big nostalgia vibes for Bad Boys.
Okay, well, my 548 is the symmetrical opposite of Bad Boys. It is Frozen from 2013. This is the modern Disney classic Frozen. I've seen this movie probably 30 times because I have a 5-year-old daughter. And I actually think this movie's great. It's really well crafted. The songs are great. The themes are interesting. It's very, Shakespeareic and theatrical and yeah, I like it. I like Frozen. So it's my 548.
Nice. My 548 is 3 colors :blue, which is my old 487, which I mentioned last episode, 3 colors :red as being on my list. So my new movie to the top 600 is my new 457, The Banshees of Inisherin from 2022. This movie stars Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Carrie Condon, Barry Keoghan. They are a group of Irish people who live on this island in Inisherin. I think it takes place during World War I. Am I correct? That's happening in the background?
That sounds right.
Okay, yeah. So about 100+ years ago. And Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson are friends in this small Irish town. And one day, Brendan Gleeson just decides he does not want to be friends with Colin Farrell anymore. And Colin Farrell cannot figure out why his friend will not be his friend anymore. And that seems pretty basic, but this movie does go places. It definitely makes choices and ramps things up. It's not like a thriller, but there's definitely things that happen that did not expect. It's probably my favorite script of last year. It's very well written, and the 4 leads are all great in this movie.
My number 547 is A Prayer Before Dawn, which is an A24 movie that came out in 2017. It's French language, I think. I don't remember exactly. But it's about I think it's in English. I don't remember. It's about a boxer who finds himself in a prison in Thailand, and people in the prison hear that he's like a very good amateur boxer type of thing, and they basically force him to fight, I would say. So over the course of the film, it's like him surviving a Thai prison with everybody thinking that he is a badass, basically. He's just kind of like, I just want to serve my time and go home. And they're like, nope, you're going to fight or you're not going to last here, type of thing. And it's really good. It's really gritty and dark. So be ready for that. But if you like boxing / survival / prison movies, this one is pretty awesome.
Sweet. Okay, my 547, we'll call it, is my favorite Christian Bale, Matthew McConaughey movie. And it's called Reign of Fire from 2002. And this movie is just awesome. It's so awesome because it's a futuristic movie where dragons have plunged Earth into another dark age. So it's like a mix of the Middle Ages and dragons. And it's just this awesome, like, kind of dark post-apocalyptic movie where Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey fight dragons. And it's awesome. And I love a good dragon movie. So if you haven't seen Reign of Fire, it's like this unique little hidden action movie that no one ever talks about. So check it out.
I must admit, I have not seen Reign of Fire, but it is on my watch list because of this podcast.
Oh, you should.
Doesn't it sound awesome?
It does sound awesome. It
If you
looked
just-
super cheesy back then, but it sounds awesome now.
If you just want a fun night watching a movie at home, pop that in.
Could an 8-year-old watch it, or is it a little racy at times?
Not
Doesn't
necessarily
matter.
Racy. It's just really grimy, I would say.
Okay.
It's R for a reason.
Oh, it's R. Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's R.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then in that
But
case-
this should be his first R, I think.
No, his first R will probably be like Terminator 2. He wants to watch that movie so bad.
Yeah, but there's no dragons in that.
There's no dragons in that one, correct?
I mean, in Terminator 2, there's really only like 2 scenes that make it R and like some cursing.
There's a lot of gun violence in Terminator 2.
Sure. But I'm sure he could watch TV and see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
So
he's not quite ready for that yet.
I-
I'm not ready to just sit down and watch a rated R movie with him either. So we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. My 547 is a movie that was mentioned last week by Zach. It Follows. However, I'm not going to talk about it because this is my old 486. So instead, I'm going to talk about my new movie, which is 452. I'm going to lose track of this so fast, guys. And that is The Menu from 2022. This is a movie where a couple played by Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult travel to this island for a very exclusive restaurant experience of this elaborate multi-course meal put on by a chef played by Ray Fiennes, as well as his head of house, Hong Chow. And as this dinner goes on, the guests realize that there is something there's a reason they're all there together. This isn't a normal dinner. This movie definitely has class politics and financial politics in it, but also is a really interesting take on chef culture and the whole idea of high-end Michelin star restaurants and, do they deserve the love that they get? So because of all those reasons, I found this to be a rather deep and savory movie, and that's why it made my top.
Oh, I hated that.
600. I know you
I
did not
hated
like that.
That pun was terrible.
Oh, I thought you liked the movie.
No, I like the pun a lot less.
Okay. There's a real depth of flavor to The Menu.
oh my gosh.
Ugh.
I
You
don't know
take a
how to
vote.
link. I don't know how to link this to my next one, so I'm not going to. Number 546.
James, you have to link them all.
I just did. 546, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from 1989, directed by Stephen Herrick, starring Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, the late great George Carlin, amongst others. And this is an 80s classic that I rewatched within the last 3 years, and I think it dropped a little in my mind. Like I've always liked this movie, but every time I watch it, it becomes more and more obvious to me that it's kind of stupid, especially compared to part 2, which I think has oddly more intelligence to it than this one.
Yeah, you love Bogus Journey.
I do. I
Yeah.
think Bogus Journey is categorically better than Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like I think it just has more to say in general, whereas Excellent Adventure is just kind of goofy. But goofy can be fun too, and that's why it's still on my list.
Wow. Just so you guys know, there's already 2 bingos for this episode. I won't say what they are yet, but already
Okay.
we have 2 bingos,
All right.
which is wild. My 546 is The Italian Job from 2003. Because I like a good Ocean's 11 kind of heist movie. And this one has a pretty famous Mini Cooper chase scene. So I think it's good.
does.
I like it better than the original Italian Job, which I found rather boring.
There's no Charlize Theron in the original one. So,
Oh, that is true.
all right. My 546 is The Departed. But that's my old 485, so I'm not going to talk about that one. Instead, I'm going to talk about the new movie to my list, my new 448, which is Capernaum from 2018. This is I believe it's a Lebanese film. It's about a Syrian refugee boy. He's like 12 or 13 years old. He is living in Beirut, and he decides to sue his parents for being brought into the world in the first place. And then this movie kind of does a flashback and just shows how challenging the last couple of years of his life have been. It's a challenging movie to watch because you're seeing this sweet 12-year-old boy try and survive on the streets as a refugee with a family that does not love him and a society does not accept him. But he is able to find a found family, and there is a great performance in this movie from a baby. Usually you don't think about babies as being actors because they're not aware of what's going on around them, like as in the fact that they're pretending. But whatever the directors did to get this baby to have the expressions and the reactions it does is pretty amazing. And overall, the kid cast in this movie is great. So if you're ready for a bit of a downer, but a heavier movie, you should check out Capernaum.
How do you spell it?
Capernaum.
Wow. Never in my wildest dreams would I have ever guessed that's how you spell it.
It's a city. It's the name of a city.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I thought this movie was called Capernaum when I talked about it the first time.
It's already on my watch list.
Capernaum.
Another movie that's challenging to spell is my number 545. This is The Banshees of Inisherin.
Wow.
The previously mentioned. Don't have much to add beyond what Kyle said about this movie just a minute ago, other than I also like it.
Wow. Well, talking about liking things, my number 545. It's a documentary that I rather liked. It's called Catfish from 2010. This is a documentary where a guy meets someone online. They kind of hit it off. Then he suspects maybe it's not who he thinks it is. He investigates, and it turns out that he was being catfished. And he just made a documentary about it. And then I guess later they made a TV show about it. And then after that, I think he got canceled because of like sexual harassment allegations. So I don't know what's going on with him now. But in 2010, I watched a documentary that I found very interesting. And this idea of catfishing was kind of like relatively new then. I think, did this movie invent the term?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why is it called catfishing?
You've never seen the movie?
I've never seen this documentary. No.
Oh, you should check it out. You should check it out. It should be
Does
the 545th movie you watch.
It's
if you will.
it's definitely explained in the movie, but it has to do with like there's a specific type of catfish that like makes its prey think it's something it's not.
It pretends to
basically.
be something else. Yeah.
Okay. So it actually has to do with the fish itself.
Yeah. The fish.
Okay.
A very specific version of the catfish.
All right. Good to know.
So I liked it. If you like documentaries and you want, this one's engaging and it's kind of twisty and it's fun. It's better than the TV show.
Yeah.
Is it-
the scene like by the horses towards the end is like so awkward. It's one of the most awkward moments in any like good in a good way, awkward documentaries.
Okay. I think I've avoided it because I feel like I understand what it's about, but there's obviously more to it than just this guy gets catfish and makes a documentary about it.
Yes, there's more to it, I would say.
All right. Okay. My 545 is Short Term 12. That's my old 44, so I'm not going to talk about that. Instead, I'm going to talk about my new movie to the list, 442, Romeo plus Juliet. This is actually the second Baz Luhrmann movie I've discussed on this installment of this series. This is the 1996 version that he made of the Shakespeare play, starring Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio as the titular characters. And Baz Luhrmann brings all of his over-the-top style to this movie. He sets it somewhat in modern day. So there are cars, there are firearms. The clothing is a bit anachronistic for the time period and fantastical. But the dialogue itself is still pretty much true to Shakespeare. And that the dialogue is being spoken sometimes at like a 12. Just the intensity of how these actors are delivering Shakespeare is something else. I rewatched this movie maybe a year or two ago, thinking I didn't care for it, and I really liked it the second time through. So maybe it came out when I was in middle school and Leonardo DiCaprio was like the thing, so I was kind of anti that movie at the time. But upon rewatch, this is a fun movie to see.
I agree. I mean, Baz Luhrmann, he's quite the visualist, as well as another quite good visualist, Alex Garland, who directed a movie in 2018 called Annihilation that I enjoyed a lot. This movie stars Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson, amongst others. And it's like this foursome female exploration team / military team that is investigating a mysterious zone.
Yeah.
I would say they're trying to figure out why this zone is so mysterious. And that's about all you really should know. But if you like Alex Garland's other films, then you've probably seen Annihilation. But if you haven't, then don't miss it.
Have you guys considered the possibility that Annihilation is just Alex Garland's Prometheus?
Well, I like Prometheus, so that wouldn't bother me at all.
I know. So Annihilation is a top 100 movie for me and probably like bottom 100 movie for Zach.
Sure.
And
yeah,
like I can understand some of the criticism of the movie. I don't think it's bad, but there's so much great about it that I can overlook some of the silly things, like having 4 untrained people with rifles. That you know, like I agree that's silly, but it doesn't ruin the movie for me.
I don't know if I was going to investigate this unknown area where no one's ever returned. I would like take a step in, look around, and then step right back out and like tell people what I saw, and then maybe do like little explorations. But they don't do that anyway. That's why Annihilation is not my 544. It's Notting Hill from 1999. Starring Hugh Grant and Julie Roberts. Because how can you beat a rom-com from the late 90s with Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts? And it's funny. That's the review.
Oh, that's all you got. Okay. Great review. Loved it. My 544 is Sweeney Todd: the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. That's my old 483, so I'm not going to talk about that one. Instead, I'm going to talk about my new 436, which is a 2021 movie called The Spine of Night. This is a rotoscoped animated movie in the vein of like Fire and Ice or Heavy Metal, which are these these animated fantasy movies of the 80s. In this movie, there are witches, there are demons, there's old gods, there's bloody sword fights. It kind of gives everything you want from an 80s fantasy just remade in 2021. So I would recommend checking it out if you like some different animation. Lucy Lawless does the voice of the main character too.
I'm into it. My number 543, Ingrid Goes West from 2017. This is a, I don't know, comedy thriller, maybe. I don't know how you'd classify this, but it stars Aubrey Plaza and Elizabeth Olsen and O'Shea Jackson Jr., aka Ice Cube Jr. And it's a movie about social media obsession and parasocial relationships, and it's pretty funny and interesting. And for those reasons, I'm out.
Okay, well, my number 543 is Pete's Dragon from 1977. And this was a huge childhood favorite of mine. I was Robin Hood every year for Halloween, except one year I was Pete's Dragon. And if you haven't seen it, this is the story of an orphan boy named Pete, and he has an invisible friend dragon named Elliot. And they have adventures. They get kind of adopted by this woman and her father who run a lighthouse. and the father is played by Mickey Rooney. And there's songs. Candle in the what is the song? Candle on the Water was nominated for an Academy Award. And it's this great mix of like animation. The dragon is completely animated, and live action. Everything else is live action. And yeah, I loved it as a kid. I watched it. I showed it to my kids maybe 6 months ago, and they were probably too young to watch Pete's Dragon. It's got a lot of bad behavior in it, but I like it. I still like it quite a lot.
How did you dress up like a invisible dragon for Halloween?
Well, I dressed up as Pete saw Elliot, so I was visible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it'd be more clever if you were Pete and you're like, here's my dragon.
Sure. Yeah. But
gesture to the right.
Except nobody knows what Pete looks like.
He looks like a moppet-headed 70s kid. I used to watch the movie all the time as a kid too. I have not watched it. I want to show it to Galen, but I have no idea how it'll hold up. So we'll get there.
Watch it. Do it.
All right. My 543 is a movie that James mentioned last episode, 2022's The Sea Beast. As James described it, this is a Netflix movie, an animated Netflix movie. It's a pirate adventure movie about a group of sea beast hunters in this world. There is these beasts of the ocean that are taking down ships. So a group of pirates are then dispatched to hunt them. I think the creature design in this movie is pretty great. I like all the different sea beasts they encounter. My biggest issue, though, was the main sea beast, the one that they kind of starts to befriend. Looks like a giant pig tongue. And I thought they could have had more fun with the one we spend the most time with versus the ones we encountered were just much more creative. The movie is kind of How to Train Your Dragon, but with sea creatures.
Yeah, I guess. How to Train Your Dragon, though, has like a lot of like, I don't know, like when you first watch the first movie, you're like, oh, I want to know more about this world. Whereas with Sea Beast, to me, I'm more interested in the characters than the world with Sea Beast. But
it's better than How to Train Your Dragon. That's why it's 543.
Nice.
But it's similar in story, I'd say.
Cool. A movie that's not similar in story at all. This is New Order from 2020, coming in at my number 542. This is a Spanish language film set in Mexico City in kind of like an alternate timeline future, but very realistic, like grounded in today's time. And it's about a wedding. Movie starts with a wedding. There's like a class war that's going on that literally breaks into like riots across Mexico City. And this wedding is for like a very affluent couple. And so they're going along with the wedding while people are getting news reports about riots happening across the city. And then after a while, they realize that people are literally going like to the rich neighborhoods and just like dragging people out of their homes because they're upset that they don't get paid well, basically. And so it's a little bit of like a French Revolution type thing, but like in modern day Mexico City. And these wealthy people are just very unaware of the danger. You know what I mean? They're like, well, we're safe inside these walls. Let's continue with the wedding type of thing. And then over the course of the movie, you can imagine that doesn't go very well for them. They become overwhelmed by people who are less fortunate than them. And that's about halfway through the movie when they get overwhelmed. The rest of it is pretty interesting. Well, all of it's pretty interesting, and that's why it's on my list.
That's a movie I wanted to check out since you first told me about it, and I just haven't gotten to it, but I'd love to check it out.
It's a good one.
Another place I'd like to check out is my 542, Outer Space from 1999. This is a short experimental film. You can actually find it on YouTube if you're interested. But basically what they did is they took footage from the 1981 horror film The Entity and they recut it experimentally, basically. So they tried all sorts of different film editing techniques, like quick cutting, superimposing, stuff like that to make it much, much more visceral, the supernatural thriller, The Entity. And visually, it's super interesting. The editing is really interesting. And if you're a fan of experimental film, this is definitely one to check out. It's called Outer Space from 1999.
I'm intrigued. Almost as intrigued as I am by my 542 True Grit, which is actually my old 42. So let's talk about a new movie instead. My new 431 Sisu from 2022. This is a movie about a aging man in Finland during World War II who is minding his own business one day when he gets harassed by a group of Nazis, and it just causes him to snap and to take revenge on these Nazis throughout the course of the rest of the movie. This movie is super fun. It is super violent, gets a little silly towards the end, but it's a good time if you just want to see a bunch of Nazis getting messed up by a dude.
That is what that movie is about.
Pretty much all I can say.
I mean, he gets messed up by them too. It's a mutual messing, I would say.
Oh, for sure. But
he does more of it though.
he's one man who can take it and dispatches a whole, I don't know, company or whatever you want to call that group of them.
Sure.
Platoon.
Another man is H.G. Wells. And in my next film, H.G. Wells pursues Jack the Ripper across time in his time machine in my number 541, Time After Time. That took a while to get to just the
A
title.
little bit of a journey.
I believe Zach had me watch this. I don't remember why. It was like your dad related to this movie or something.
My dad plays an extra in this movie.
That's what it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my watch date on Letterboxd is August 5th, 2014. So that was early days of the podcast. You got me to watch this.
Nice.
And I obviously enjoyed it. Like I remember this movie being a little dated in the visuals, but in the script, it was like a fun, comedic action adventure film that had a time travel element. And I mean, who doesn't love all that? For sure.
It's a fun one. It's a fun one. And Mary Steenburgen is so great.
I agree. She's always great.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, that had, no, I'm not going to do a transition here. My number 541 is called Close Up from 1990. And this is directed by Abbas Kiarostami, and he's an Iranian director. And he always has super interesting films. He's a very thought-provoking director. This movie is half documentary, half narrative. It tells the real life story of a man that impersonated a famous Iranian director in order to like get people to let him use their house. He said, "I'm going to use your house for my next movie." So he pretended to be this famous director in order to like use their house. There was a big trial about it and he went to jail over it. Okay. Then Abbas Kiarostami, this other famous Iranian director, says, "I'm going to make a movie about it." So he has that guy play himself in the movie. And so it's half documentary, half the guy plays his actual self, meets the director he was impersonating, and the director takes him to the house that he lied to the people about. And the whole movie is about like identity and forgiveness. And like, it's just super interesting. It's very meta. The closest documentary I can think of is that one from Indonesia that we both really like. That
The
I don't
Act of
remember what it's
Killing?
called. Act of Killing, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
the closest, like, mechanic to this kind of movie. But all of Kiarostami's movies are really interesting, and this one is probably my favorite. So Close Up, 1990, my 541.
Nice. My 541 is In Bruges. That's my old 481. So let's talk about another new movie. My new 426, The Tammy Show. That's TAMI, which stands for Teenage Music International. This is, I guess you call it a documentary, but it's really just concert footage of this performance that was done for a couple nights in 1964 in Santa Monica for thousands of high school students. And this concert was a real mashup of rock and roll acts of the early 60s. And well, it was also a concert that crossed a lot of racial barriers, where you had groups like James Brown performing next to the Rolling Stones, performing next to Chuck Berry, performing next to the Beach Boys. The acts that perform in this concert is amazing. I can only imagine being a teenager in like Santa Monica in the early 60s and like showing up at your high school auditorium. And then here is this incredible concert performance being put on for you. This is a very easy movie to watch. It's on YouTube. You can definitely have it in the background while you're doing other things, because it's mostly just performances and singing. But you definitely need to stop and watch James Brown perform, because he puts on the show of a lifetime at the Tammy Show.
My number 540 is The Treasure of Sierra Madre from 1948. This is a classic, directed by John Huston, starring Humphrey Bogart, amongst others, and one of the rare films with Humphrey Bogart in it where I could get past his whole acting affectation.
Have you seen The Maltese Falcon?
I have not seen that one. Is that similar?
That's good.
All right.
Do you not like Humphrey Bogart?
It's not that I don't like him. It's just when I see him on screen, it's Humphrey Bogart on screen. It's not the character he's playing.
Is that because he was so parodied in pop culture, like when we were growing up?
Very possible that like I've grown up seeing him as Humphrey Bogart and then
Right.
like watching his movies afterwards.
Fair,
Thing.
yeah.
And it's also very possible that he often in his most famous movies plays generally the same guy from an attitude perspective.
I should make a list of Humphrey Bogart movies where I think he's doing more than just playing the Bogart.
Okay.
'Cause like what's the one with on the ship with the strawberries, Zach?
Africa?
Is it the
African
Cane
Queen?
Mutiny? No, the Cane Mutiny.
Oh, yeah, the Cane Mutiny. Yeah.
Yeah, in that one. And then there's another
Or is it
one.
the HMS Bounty? It's one of those two.
I think it's the Cane Mutiny.
Okay.
Like that one, he's not playing Humphrey Bogart.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Regardless, we're 10 movies in and almost an hour of recording. So if you guys want this to be a 5-hour podcast, let's keep this pace.
My number 540 is The Congress from 2013, starring Robin Wright. And she plays herself, and she sells the digital rights to her image to a company to Miramount Studios. And she has to agree to stop acting and recede from public life. And then the movie's about like what that does. And like her digital self goes to this digital world that's like very stylized and animated. And the whole movie is super interesting, and it's relevant today, as right now the writers in Hollywood and actors are on strike. And part of it is because of AI, and they want some like assurances about AI and what's going to happen in the future with that. So it's very relevant today, and it's super interesting movie. The Congress from 2013.
My dad recommended this movie to me because of the whole strike.
Well, check it out.
So I will check it out.
No.
My 540 is a movie from 1991 called The Addams Family. This is the film version of the 1950s, early 60s TV show, starring Raul Julia, Angelica Houston, Christina Ricci, Christopher Lloyd. If people aren't familiar, the Addams Family is this kind of gothic family that lives in the suburbs, and there's a little kooky, a little otter. They're into, the dark things in life. And this is just such a fun movie because it could be super cheesy, being that this is like a film version of a 60s TV show, but they just got an incredible cast to play these actors or to play these characters. And it's super fun to watch them on film together.
My 539 is from 2018. It's American Animals, which is a pseudo documentary narrative caper bank heist, or rather just heist film that was really good. I enjoyed it. Also happens to be the best of the films released by MoviePass. That being said, they only released 2. American Animals and Gotti, so it's not a whole lot of competition here, but it was definitely the best they ever released.
I like
they
that
released
movie.
Gotti.
They released Gotti, yeah.
Man.
My 539 is A Trip to the Moon from 1902. This is George Millet's film. Very early silent film from the film industry, and probably has one of the most famous shots of the first half of the film history, where the rocket goes right into the eye of the moon. This is people. A group of astronomers plan a trip to the moon. They shoot up in a rocket. They get there. They find creatures there and kind of fight with them, and then rush back to the rocket. It's actually super entertaining and iconic and good. And if you're a fan of like the history of cinema, you gotta watch Trip to the Moon.
It's only 13 minutes long also.
Yeah.
So easy to get into. My 539 is Black Panther. That's my old 480. So instead, a new movie on my list is my new 423, which is Cool Runnings from 1993. This is the Disney version of the Jamaican bobsled team movie. It is definitely a nostalgia watch for me. It's funny. It's silly. It is not accurate to history whatsoever. But it is a heartwarming underdog story based somewhat on fact.
My 538 is from 1995. It's La Haine.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a great drama set in Paris. You've got this group of young people who are involved in a riot. They get split up from a friend of theirs, and then they meet up later on that night and just kind of debate what happened to their friend, I would say. And then other stuff happens. And it's a talkie for sure, but a good one, and worth the time investment for sure. It also stars Vincent Cassel, and man,
From D'Artagnan.
yeah, that guy has been in a lot of movies.
Yes, he has.
Yeah. My 538 is Sunset Boulevard from 1950. This is the Billy Wilder critically acclaimed movie. It won 3 Academy Awards. It's about a guy starts working for Norma Desmond, who used to be a great silent film actress, and now she lives in obscurity. And it's an awesome classic movie. It's definitely one to check out.
Yeah, another top 100 movie for me. Great. I love it. My 538 is Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2. That's my old 479. So a new movie to my list is my new 420, Polytechnique. This is Denis Villeneuve's first movie, ? Maybe his first feature movie from 2009. And this movie is a dramatic retelling of a massacre, a school shooting that happened at a college in Montreal in 1989. And it was perpetuated by a misogynist, a man who had a vendetta against women. It is a tough movie to watch because it's about gun violence and it does not shy away from the gun violence. It is very feels very current because of gun violence in America and misogyny in America, even though it takes place in Canada. But it is done very effectively and tells multiple experiences that people had on this tragic day. So I do recommend it, but know what you're getting into before you watch it.
That's a good one for sure. My number 537 is from 2019. It's Knives Out: A Knives Out Story, directed by Rian Johnson. Sure, you guys have heard of this one. Mystery film a la Clue, but with new actors.
Yeah. Most movies are.
Sure, my 537 has none of the same new actors as James's 537. It is from 2001. It's called Amelie. And this is a movie I saw when it first came out on a date. And I think it was the first French movie that I'd ever seen. And I was really blown away by it. It's like this indie kind of quirky French romantic comedy maybe. And it's so good. It's just very artistic and whimsical. and lovely. And yeah, it was a good first French movie to see. And I know James hasn't seen it, but he should check it out. He'll like it. So it's called Amelie, and it's from 2001.
James, you haven't seen Amelie?
I'm pretty sure I've seen Amelie.
I think you've told me before that you have not seen it.
Hold on. No, I have it watch listed. I think I confused it with something else.
Okay.
Interesting. All right.
Well,
my 537 is The Guest, which is my old 478. So my new movie to the list is 399, Oppenheimer, the Christopher Nolan movie, which we discussed a couple weeks ago. It's now my top 400. Check out that episode for more on my thoughts on Oppenheimer.
Nice. Wow, that happened quickly. I was researching my next film. This is my number 536, The 39 Steps from 1935, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. And I was researching it because I don't really remember this movie.
I didn't know you liked this movie, James.
I mean, I had it as a 4-star, and I think I confused it with the other Hitchcock movie with Rear Window. And so I maybe those need to be swapped, or maybe I just need to watch a trailer of 39 Steps and decide whether it's the appropriate positioning. I don't know.
Most people don't rank 39 Steps over Rear Window.
Okay.
So, but hey, to each their own.
I could read this plot synopsis to you, but it's not helping me at all.
Don't worry about it, James. I'll say this for your sake.
All right.
When I wanted to start watching list movies, that's something we talk about a lot. These are movies that are like critically acclaimed by a lot of people and show up on a lot of best movies ever list. The 39 Steps was the first list movie that I watched.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a pointless piece of data.
Well, perhaps you'll remember it as opposed to anything about the film that is now in your top 600.
I'll probably remember that about it more than anything that is actually relevant to the movie.
That's what I'm saying. What's great, though, is you now have a movie that you know you like that you can watch fresh again.
That's true.
Kind of like my 536, Apocalypto, which I've only seen once. But I remember it pretty well. That movie's pretty striking, I would say. And it takes place in a foreign dead language, which is impressive. I think that was something Mel Gibson was into at the time. And it follows the Mayans, and it's super, super striking, I think is a good word for it, visually and plot wise. So yeah, Apocalypto, 536.
Nice. My 536 is in English. It is Big Trouble in Little China. That's my old 477. So instead, new to my list at 376, another 2023 movie, Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse. This is the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, which is a maybe top 100 movie for me, definitely like top 150. I did not think lightning would strike twice with this franchise because I think Into the Spider-Verse is a perfect movie. And Across the Spider-Verse, maybe not a perfect movie, but they kind of pulled it off again. Really impressed with the animation, the storytelling, and really looking forward to the third installment, whatever they call it. We're across. What are we now going to do to the Spider-Verse?
Over the Spider-Verse.
Over the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man : I'm over it.
Mm-hmm. My number 535 from 2019, it's Jojo Rabbit. This is a comedy drama, World War II set, aka the Hitler comedy from just a few years ago, directed by Taika Waititi, where he is kind of the imaginary, I don't know what you'd say.
Imaginary friend.
He's kind of the imaginary friend of a young boy who is being influenced by the Hitler Youth, I would say. Or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct.
The movie also stars Scarlett Johansson and Thomasin McKenzie and Sam Rockwell, Rebel Wilson, amongst others. And I found it to be very funny and interesting and surprisingly poignant at moments, I would say. I think Scarlett Johansson and the way they wrote her character brought quite a lot more to this movie than what I expected. And that's why it has kept a spot in my memory these past couple of years.
Cool. Well, my 535 is a movie. I believe it's in Kyle's top 20. It's Beau is Afraid. And
love that. Top 20 worst movies I've ever seen.
This movie stars Joaquin Phoenix, and we recently talked about it on episode 580 of the Cinereelists podcast. So if you want to hear our review, you can listen to that episode. But I thought it was rather inventive, and I liked it a lot.
If we ever rank like our top 2,300 films, maybe Beau is Afraid will make it on the list. But
okay,
don't hold your breath for that one. My 535 is a 1992 movie called Bob Roberts, which is my old 337. I'm not sure why I dropped this 200 spots, but apparently I thought it was overranked.
I think mostly all of these like substitutions just mean you didn't take the time last time crafting your list, and this time you actually like spent some time really.
Maybe spent a little bit more time on the list. Yeah, possibly. So my new movie at 357. 2021's 8-Bit Christmas. This is a movie we actually watched for the podcast for our Christmas episode, which I look forward to every year. And this movie has become, I would say, a family favorite where we've watched it every Christmas since. This movie stars Neil Patrick Harris, and he is retelling to his daughter how he obtained a Nintendo Entertainment System back in the early 80s. So it's mostly a period piece. There is a lot of 80s bass comedy in this. Steve Zahn and June Diane Raphael play his parents. It's a lot of fun. It's heartwarming. It's funny. Everyone in my family likes it, and that's why it's my 357.
My number 500 and what did you say?
34. He said a weird number.
He said a weird number. You threw me off.
This is your 534.
My 534. I was like, what? What number are we on? I started freaking out. My number 534 is from 2021. It's The Last Duel, which is a period piece film set... I don't even know when. What time period would you say Last Duel is?
It's like
I hate these things.
12th or 13th century?
Maybe
Possibly.
13th century.
Sure. But this movie stars Jodie Comer, Matt Damon, Adam Driver, and Ben Affleck, and has a similar storytelling device to an Akira Kurosawa movie that I haven't seen. Rashomon. Have not seen Rashomon, but I've been told it's a similar storytelling device, and I enjoy this one quite a bit. It's also a movie directed by Ridley Scott, who directed my 280th favorite movie, Prometheus.
Wow. Gladiator's higher than that, right?
Gladiator is higher than that, yes.
Okay, good. And are you guys excited about Napoleon? That's going to be good.
I'm excited about Napoleon, yes.
Napoleon's either going to be amazing or very messy. I can't tell yet.
I agree. I don't think we'll be middle on that movie at all.
Right.
All right. Yeah. My 534 is The Pistol: The Birth of a Legend from 1991. This is a movie I've talked about on the show a few times, but it's about Pistol Pete, a little boy who was great at basketball, and his father. And this movie has one of my favorite father-son relationships of all of cinema. And the kid really is good at basketball. And if you like basketball movies, I definitely recommend checking out The Pistol.
Nice. My 534 is Soul. That's my old 476. So instead, a new movie to the list, 351, The Batman. This is from 2022, directed by Matt Reeves. Robert Pattinson plays the Batman. I didn't think I needed any more Batman movies after Dark Knight trilogy. Never really got into Ben Affleck Batman, so I was went into this movie with a little bit of trepidation, but it's good. It's definitely a different take on the Batman character, where you feel like Robert Pattinson is more Batman than Bruce Wayne, lays a lot into the detective work of Batman, but also kind of gives us Batman in the early stages of his crime-fighting career. This movie would be higher if Paul Dano had just taken it down a notch or two.
All right. My 533 is from 2022. It's Women Talking, which is a movie that we talked about at length back in March on, I don't remember what episode that was, but recently. Go check it out if you want a bunch of us talking about women talking.
Well, Kyle, I'm curious if your 533 is going to be more like James's or more like mine, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze from 1991. This is the second installment of the TMNT series, and it's not as good as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, but it's pretty fun.
Well, my 533 is a 2022 movie that I think is, I guess, more like TMNT2 than Women Talking. This is RRR, an Indian Tollywood film. This is a period piece, takes place about 100 years ago, towards the end of the British rule in India. It's about two men. One is a revolutionary, you could say, and one works for the police, and they butt against each other in this tumultuous time in India. But this movie is just incredibly over the top, and that's why you watch it. The stunts are something else. The CGI is questionable at times, but they just lean into it, so you can't fault them for it. There is a shootout at the end where one of the characters is carrying the other character on his shoulders, like chicken fight style, while he's dual wielding guns. It's ridiculous. It's super fun. There's a couple of great dance scenes, including the very famous suspender dance from Natu Natu. I think if you are looking for Indian cinema, this is a good entry point to what it looks like in the modern era.
My number 532 is from 1978. It's the musical classic Grease, which is a movie that was constantly in replay in my household, having grown up with three sisters. And I mean, I can kind of vaguely sing the songs to myself as I watch the movie, just because it was like just natural background music for me. And I think it's a really colorful, energetic movie that I can't say I've sat down and watched in full except for once. And that one time was kind of like a fever dream for me because I had only watched it in like pieces, like as it was playing in the room or as I'm walking from room to room or as I'm playing in my room and I'm hearing it type of thing. And so to watch it in full from beginning to end was kind of like a weird experience for me because it was like putting a puzzle together that you had been working on for like 20 years. And somebody just handing you little pieces of it here and there. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. I understand why my sisters were into it. Because it's a fun movie.
I watched that in the last 2 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because my wife had never seen it.
That's interesting. Because she also grew up in a household of mostly women, right?
Yeah.
Was it just not a movie that ever played in that household, or what? What was?
Yeah, I don't think they ever played it.
Interesting.
Her mom liked it. I don't know. All right. My 532 could not be more different than yours, James. It is called Terror at the Mall from 2014, and it's a documentary about a terrorist attack at a Nairobi, Kenyan mall.
Oh, I didn't know you'd seen this. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a really, really harrowing documentary. Yeah, it's brutal. This terrorist attack happened in 2013. They took hostages, and over the course of 4 days, I think 67 people died. Anyway, they have lots of surveillance camera footage of what happened and then the attempts to save the remaining hostages. And it's just really gripping. It's a great documentary. And yeah, I definitely recommend it, but it's very serious. So Terror at the Mall, 2014.
Well, my movie is the exact opposite of Terror at the Mall. This is 2021's Petite Maman. This is a movie, I believe it's in French, about a 8-year-old girl who is with her mom at her mother's childhood home after her grandmother passed away, cleaning it out. And her mother says to her, "Oh, hey, I used to go play in the woods. You should go play in the woods like I used to." So this girl goes out into the woods, finds an old tree house, and then meets another girl her same age, and they form a friendship together. And this is just a really sweet movie about childhood friendship. There are the two actors who play these 8-year-old girls are both really good. There's also themes of like being connected to your past and to your mother throughout this movie. And it was kind of a special small movie that I watched in 2021 that I really enjoyed, and I think probably more people should enjoy just because it's easy to watch. There's nothing heightened. Well, I guess there's things going on, but it's an easy movie to watch.
Another movie that's easy to watch, at least for me. I don't know if for everybody, but this movie went down smooth for me. We're talking 2022's Tar, which is a slow burn drama set in the world of classical music conductors, starring Cate Blanchett. And it's a story of the shifting power dynamic, or maybe the abuse of power dynamic in the workplace, and how it's not always, or it doesn't have to be gender specific. It's more like what power can do to you, whether you're a man or a woman. And that makes it sound really boring. And maybe it is, but kind of that's part of it. It's this kind of a slow, drawn out, but awesome drama where you really get to understand the mind of this conductor who's female, who lives in a very male dominated world, and maybe some of the guardrails she's put up to help survive within that world. It's really good. And if you like strong central performances and a steady hand of a director who knows exactly what they're making, you should check out Tar.
Cool. My 531 is Exodus: Gods and Kings from 2014. It's a Ridley Scott film. We know we love Ridley Scott here, and it stars Christian Bale and Ben Kingsley and Joel Edgerton, and Aaron Paul is even in it. And yeah, it's about Moses, and it's fun. Who doesn't like a good Moses movie? What? No, no. This one's good.
I didn't like it.
Well, my 531 also stars Ben Kingsley. It is Schindler's List, which is so weird ranking this movie. So I'm not going to talk about it because we already talked about this when we did our top 500. Schindler's List is my old 475. Instead, a new movie I want to talk about. Let's move on as fast as we can. 345, Apollo 10.5. This is a Richard Linklater rotoscoped movie. I think we've mentioned the word rotoscoped on these 2 episodes more than we have like in a year.
You have.
I haven't mentioned a single rotoscope.
This is your
thing.
third rotoscoped film.
But you had, Zach, you had Tower.
Yeah, I had Tower.
Yeah. I like rotoscope. I'm not going to shy away from that. I think it's a really interesting medium.
I like it too. I just didn't bunch them all up in the same 100.
No, I didn't. This is 345.
All right.
Sure.
Right.
Enough.
We are. I'm just confusing everyone by not talking about movies in my top 600 because I've already talked about them. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yep. So anyway, Apollo 10.5. This is a movie loosely based on Richard Linklater's own life. It's about a boy growing up in Texas during the Apollo missions, and he is imagining himself as an astronaut, as someone who gets to be on these missions. It's also just sort of a bit of a nostalgia trip for this era, for the mid 60s. I watched this movie with my parents, and they were having such a good time because they were around the same age when, during the Apollo era. And so much of what this character was experiencing or remembering was part of their memory too. So maybe part of the reason I really enjoyed it so much was just because my parents also enjoyed it. And I was, building off of their joy. But I think this is another fun movie that you can easily watch.
It's on my list. I'm going to get to it eventually. Just because I'm a huge fan of rotoscoping. Zach and I don't agree on Exodus, Gods and Monsters, but we do agree on this 1974 movie, The Taking of Pelham. 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Not quite an exact bingo. How far off are we? What was your number?
I had it at 549.
Okay. So 19 different.
But what are the
Pretty
odds that
close.
both of us are talking about the taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3?
Well, I'm not going to talk about it much because I don't have much to say beyond what you said about it. My number 530.
All right, well, let's see if you talk about this obscure movie from the 80s. My 530, Top Secret, exclamation point.
Ooh.
This is Zucker Brothers made a spoof comedy movie starring Val Kilmer, and he plays like a World War II spy. And I think this movie is super funny. It has a lot of like inventive, goofy jokes in it, you know, a la Hot Shots and Airplane and that kind of humor. And that style of humor has been co-opted, and we only see it for like Scary Movie and those kind of movies. But I think they did it better in the 80s. So Top Secret, my 530.
I may or may not have seen that movie. I don't remember. I confuse it with Loaded Weapon also.
Okay. Yeah. That one has OJ.
No,
that's Naked Gun. That's Naked Gun.
No, Loaded Weapon has Estevez and someone else.
Okay.
All right. My 530 is Howl's Moving Castle. That's my old 474. So instead, let's talk about my new 314, 2022's Weird: The Al Yankovic Story. This is the Weird Al Yankovic biopic satire starring Daniel Radcliffe as Weird Al. And this movie is hilarious, and it is like a Weird Al song, where it starts off kind of making fun of the whole biopic tropes and genre, and then halfway through just kind of goes off the rails in hilarious ways for me, like the best Weird Al songs. So I didn't think that Weird Al could take his genius as a musician and turn it into filmmaking, but here we go. Weird: The Al Yankovic Story.
Somehow he made a parody of his own life.
He made a parody of his own life and made it funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
529 puts us square in 1989. It's Say Anything ... which is a comedy with a little bit of drama, I would say. I definitely think of this movie more as an 80s movie than a 90s movie, mostly because it was released in the 80s. But 1989 is definitely 1989 is practically
two
the
nines
90s.
in the year.
Right, exactly.
That's how it works.
This is kind of that iconic movie where John Cusack holds a boombox over his head and plays music for his girlfriend who's stuck in the house, basically, by her tyrannical father. Don't remember the specific details of this one, other than I enjoyed the comedy, I enjoyed the romance, and I enjoyed the drama. My number, whatever I said.
529. That movie is good. I endorse that movie as well.
It's a Cameron Crowe movie. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. My 529 is not a Cameron Crowe movie. It is directed by Paul Greengrass, and it stars Tom Hanks, and it is called News of the World.
Yeah.
And I was rather taken by this film. I thought it was a spiritual sister to The Postman, and I liked it quite a bit. It's a Western, takes place after the Civil War. Tom Hanks goes from town to town reading newspapers to illiterate people that don't know the news. And he agrees to take a young girl who was stolen away from her people back to her family. And yeah, it's kind of, episodic. He meets a bunch of different threats, and I think the movie is really, really good. So News of the World, my 529.
My 529 is Dawn of the Dead. That's my old 473. So instead, let's talk about my new 311, the previously mentioned The Last Duel, directed by Ridley Scott. As James already said, this is a Rashomon style movie about three people all remembering the same event in different ways. For me, Jodie Comer really stood out in this movie. I think all three leads are great, but her performance and her storyline I thought was the most interesting and the most fascinating. And I liked the titular last duel at the end. I thought it was a really well-directed medieval action scene from Ridley Scott, showing that he can still pull it off. This was my favorite movie of 2021.
I think Matt Damon is the actor who is most willing to look dumb in a movie. Like he chooses so many roles where he doesn't come off great, and I'm so proud of him.
Like look dumb physically or look dumb as a
No,
character?
just like he plays an unlikable character.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. He's really he doesn't seem to have an ego in that way.
My number 528 is from 2022. It's Top Gun : Maverick,
Nice.
which was amazingly, 30 some odd years later, a worthy sequel to the original Top Gun, which holds like a weird nostalgic part of my brain, even though I've rewatched that movie over the years and I could definitely see faults in it. But somehow they managed to capture kind of the broiness of the first film, but like excise some of the datedness out of it, and also just kind of humanize Tom Cruise's Maverick character over the course of it. Like in the first movie, he kind of feels bigger than life and untouchable, and in this movie he's still those things, and yet he feels vulnerable, at least in this one. And I loved everything they were selling me on this film. And I really like that they also took it to the ground, too. Like, if they wanted to make a Top Gun 3, they could do, like, half as much flying and give them a little adventures on the ground as well, and I'd still be up for it. I don't need some weird mission with an unnamed enemy or anything like that. But
so you want Top Gun without the airplanes?
I want Mission Impossible with jets is what I want.
I think it's maybe the best Lego sequel of all time.
I think I said that exact same thing last episode.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. My 528 is a documentary called At the Heart of Gold Inside the USA Gymnastics Scandal from 2019. And this is the documentary about Larry Nassar's sexual abuse of the USA Gymnastics Olympic team. Not just the Olympic team, but like all the gymnasts under his care. And it's just a super sad story, right? I mean, I think people remember this from the news, but this interviews a lot of the victims and lays out what happened in the narrative and stuff like that. And it's really powerful. And if you find that subject interesting and you can stomach watching a documentary about it, it's really good. It's called At the Heart of Gold Inside the USA Gymnastics Scandal.
All right. My 525 is a 1953 movie called Ugetsu. This is a Japanese film. It's about two peasants during the 16th century who are selling pots during war. They're kind of war profiteering. They're not supposed to be, making money during this conflict. They decide to they leave their families behind, their wives, the children behind, to travel to a larger city to try and make more money. And then they each kind of have separate weird side adventures where one's trying to become a samurai and must steal armor to get it. So he does anything he can. And the other, kind of our main character, falls in love with this mysterious woman named Lady Wakasa, who lives in this manor on the outside of town that no one really talks about. This movie has really striking cinematography. There are a couple scenes in this movie that are just kind of burned in my brain in a good way, just of how they're composed and how characters are reacting. There's a scene on a foggy lake as the characters are trying to traverse it that I think is rather famous in cinema. And this is a list movie that I avoided for a long time because it seemed like it'd be super boring, and I really enjoyed it.
I love that movie as well. My wife hated it. She still talks about that movie.
Really? I'm surprised that you watched it with her, or that she watched it with you.
Yeah.
Did she hate it after the first 45 minutes?
It's hard to say. She kind of reserved judgment until the end.
So you couldn't tell at all, but based on her body language, how she was feeling until the very end of that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Julie plays it close to her chest then.
My number 527 from 2021, Spider-Man: No Way Home, which is the third and most recent MCU Spider-Man movie. And it's a movie that I really enjoyed, and I just still, I mean, movie's been out for a while now, but I still can't get over that, like, it exists in the form that it exists in, because nowhere in my wildest dreams did I ever think we would see these guys come back and play Spider-Man in a new Spider-Man movie. Like, that just was not within my brain as a thing that Marvel or any comic book movie would ever do, bring people back from previous iterations of the franchise. So it's crazy that this movie exists, and it's also crazy that it's good at the same time. Like, not only did they do it, but it turned out well. And definitely one of my favorite Spider-Man movies, and Rising.
I haven't seen Rising, but I'm glad that's a good Spider-Man movie. My 527 is Oppenheimer, the previously mentioned biopic. And it's good. And you've probably seen it. So, Kyle, you can go next.
All right. My 527 is Paddington 2, but that is my old 472. So instead, a new movie on my list at 302 is Prey from 2021. This is the 5th movie in the Predator franchise. 6th movie? I'm not sure which one. It's 6. Okay.
I think it's 6.
All right. So this is a Predator movie, but it takes place in America, kind of when we're the New World, in the beginning of the 18th century. Am I doing that correctly? Yes. 1700s, 18th century. So in this case, the Predator has arrived in North America and has to be taken down by a group of Comanche Native Americans. And they are not prepared to fight this overpowered alien force. So they, and specifically one woman, must use their resources and knowledge of the land to defeat this overpowered predator alien. This movie was really good. I really enjoyed it. I like seeing smart characters in movies. Like, they can't outgun this thing. They have to use the resources. There's also some great kills. There's a bit of a colonizer commentary going on. So you see the French fur trappers get taken out pretty violently, but it's pretty fun. And I think this is probably my second favorite Predator movie.
After Predators, the Adam Brody movie.
I have not seen Adrian Brody.
I
have not seen Predators. I own it on 4K. I need to watch it. But no, Predator, the original, is my favorite. That's my 281.
Fair enough. From your favorite to mine, Kyle.
302. So this is only like 20 higher than Predator, which is pretty crazy.
And your numbering really throws me off when I look at my list. My number 526 from 2020, Shiva Baby, which is a comedy that is pretty reliant on a central performance from Rachel Sennett as a college student who is making her way through. She's kind of apathetical and sarcastic, and she's making her way through life via sugar daddy, I would say. And she goes to, what do they call it? A wake? Is that a wake?
A Shiva.
A Shiva.
Yeah.
All right. People are sitting Shiva, which is something I've never personally done, but they do in the Jewish culture. Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
And her sugar daddy shows up uninvited, and she's shocked to find out he's a friend of the family. And so awkward comedy ensues, and I really enjoy this movie. And because of Rachel Sennett's performance in this, I'll see whatever she's got coming next, which I think is Bottoms, that we've committed to watching and talking about or something.
Yep.
Which I'm down for. Bottoms being directed also by the same director. So I'm into it, just like I'm into Shiva Baby.
Well, my 526. Yeah, Kyle.
Go for it.
Okay, my 526 is A Hard Day's Night from 1964. This is a Beatles film, and it shows kind of like a fictional day in the life of the Beatles. And this movie's great. It's so frenetic. There's a lot. It shows the frenzy of like the Beatles at their height and when everyone is like crazy infatuated with them. And it's edited and shot in a super playful, fun way, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, good movie. Good movie. My 526 is 1994's Reality Bites. This is directed by Ben Stiller. It stars him as well as Winona Ryder and Ethan Hawke, Gina Garofalo, Steve Zahn. This is sort of a Gen X, I don't know, romantic drama. That's the best way you can place it. Winona Ryder and plays, she's a woman amongst this group of friends. They're all kind of post-college trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. She's filming her friends in these little bites of reality, hence the title. And she befriends and starts to date Ben Stiller, who's like this, he runs a MTV-like station. He wants to turn her footage into a TV show, but she's also wrestling with her feelings for Ethan Hawke, who is sort of this, post-college, smarter than everyone, too good for society person. This is the movie that turned me back onto Winona Ryder as being a watchable actress. For whatever reason, I did not care for Winona Ryder. I just thought whenever she was on screen, did not want to see her. But then when I saw Reality Bites, I was like, okay, yeah, I could watch more Winona Ryder movies after this. And always love seeing Ethan Hawke on film. So no complaints there.
Ethan Hawke is not in my number 525 rather. This is from 1977, Three Women, which is a Robert Altman movie.
That's a good movie.
An odd W for Robert Altman in my book. Just because I've seen it like more than a handful of his movies now, and they're definitely very hit or miss for me. But this one, definitely more hit than miss. This stars Shelley Duvall and Sissy Spacek. Robert Fortier is in the film as well. And this is just a weird movie about obsession and I don't know. There's like it's about these roommates and one is like stalker level, I would say, at the beginning of the movie. And then over the course of the film, the roles change in a weird way. I don't know. It's a weird drama mystery type film that has Robert Altman's like very chill filmmaking style where you're just kind of existing with these people. And rather than feeling like plot lines have been written for it, the plot lines just kind of happen without real high points or low points. So you got to kind of be ready for that. Like I said, Altman doesn't normally work for me, but in this one, it did. Three Women.
Cool. I like that movie. My 525 is a documentary called Microcosmos. It's from 1996. This was a listener suggestion, and I ended up really liking it. It is a macro photography documentary about the world of insects. So it follows all this drama related to insects, and you see the most stunning close-up macro filmography of these insects, and it's really dazzling. And they put them in these little tableaus, with like colorful background, so it's just very clearly you can see these insects, and it's super interesting. And I'd never seen them this close up, and then showing just the drama of the insect's existence. It was cool. So I definitely recommend Microcosmos, my 525.
Good movie. Good pick. My 525 is 1982's First Blood. This is the first Rambo movie. I really want to read to you the first couple sentences of the letterboxed description of this movie because it is pretty funny. When former Green Beret John Rambo is harassed by local law enforcement and arrested for vagrancy, the Vietnam vet snaps, runs for the hills, and rat-a-tats his way into the action movie Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Anyway, so yeah, this is the first movie of the Rambo franchise. This is a rather small movie compared to what this franchise became. where it takes place in the hills of I think it's like Pennsylvania or upstate New York or something like that. About this Vietnam War veteran who snaps and kind of holds himself up against local law enforcement. It is both a violent movie and a pretty bloodless movie. There's not a lot of kills in this. And it's just really interesting that this movie, which is much more commentary on, how Vietnam vets are being treated in that era. It's interesting how this movie then became the Rambo franchise, where it's just body count and tons of machine guns and how many people can he kill in a certain span of time. Much different movie than what it became.
My number 524 is a documentary from 2017 titled Icarus, which is about a guy, an amateur bike racer who is intrigued by the recent doping scandals in cross-country biking. And cross-country, or is it speed biking? Distance, probably. I don't know. Doesn't matter. The point is, he starts investigating the idea of whether doping in that sport is really a big deal or not. And then about halfway through the documentary, he goes down a rabbit hole that somehow connects him to the Olympic level doping scandal that the Russians had going on. And the documentary is told like investigative style, and it has twists and turns, and it's really well told, and told more in like a thriller style, like a narrative thriller. Yet it is a documentary that actually brought forth some real consequences for the Russian Olympic Committee or team, or I don't know what you'd call them. And it's a good one. Icarus. I believe Netflix owns it. It's there perpetually. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
My 524 is Mission: Impossible - Ghost Protocol from 2011. And I'm a big fan of the modern Mission Impossible movies, except the last one. I didn't like the last one very much. But this one's awesome. And they go to Dubai and Mumbai, and it's awesome. So Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, very good.
Nice. My 524 is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from 2022. This is an A24 horror film about a group of 20-somethings who are going to wait out a hurricane or a storm in one of their parents' houses. After the power goes out, one of the members of the group ends up dead, and they all start suspecting each other of being the murderer, or that there's a murderer loose amongst the group. And friendships are exposed in both horrifying and sometimes hilarious ways. This is Maria Bakalova's follow-up to Borat 2. This movie also stars Rachel Sennett, who I think is the best part of this movie. And I don't say brief, but Pete Davidson is also in this movie, if you like that guy.
Sometimes I like that guy. I didn't like him in that movie. He was fine, but his character wasn't a big deal to me.
No, he's not in the movie a lot.
523 brings us a 2014 movie titled John Wick, the movie that started it all. And by all, I mean Keanu Reeves returning as an action star. I mean, this is a good one. If you're looking for revenge thrillers, that's essentially what this is. It has this odd kind of external wrapper of like a side world hitman, alternate reality type comic book movie type thing going on in it as well. But the core of it is just a guy who his dog gets killed and his car gets stolen, and he takes revenge for the next 90 minutes or so. And it's a fun 90 minutes, the throwback 90 minutes. There's a Marilyn Manson song in this movie, which is crazy for a 2014 movie. In fact, I believe there's like 2 Marilyn Manson songs in this movie, which is insane for a movie that was released in 2014. That was like a good decade after he had lost all relevance, I would say. Yeah. John Wick. What can you say about it? Everybody's seen it, I'm sure.
Well, if you like John Wick, maybe you should check out 1955's Rafifi, because they are both movies. And Rafifi is great. It's a heist film, with this amazing 30-minute heist sequence that's has no dialogue, and it's incredibly tense, and it's awesome. So it's a very cool film, very well shot. Rafifi.
Well, Zach, my movie's from 1956 and is also
Close.
French. It
Wow.
is A Man Escaped.
Yes.
This is directed by Robert Bresson, exactly. And this is a pretty simple movie about a French resistance fighter during World War II who is imprisoned and plans to escape from prison. And this movie methodically follows him as he plans and executes this escape from prison. It's 100 minutes long, and it's nearly a real-time telling of him escaping from prison. So if you need to see him making a piece of rope, you will watch this person making rope. If he needs to chisel away a bit of rock, you will watch him chisel the rock away. But there's something, I don't know, meditative about the pacing of this movie. It's not slow. It's just deliberate in showing how determined this man is to escape this prison, and you feel his determination, and you are rooting for him the entire time.
What was the name of that again?
A Man Escaped.
A Man
So good.
Escaped.
Yeah.
All right. I will check that one out. Sounds fun. My number 522, not a fun movie, but a good one. 1989, it's Glory, which is a Civil War movie, or movie based during the Civil War, the U.S. Civil War, rather. And it focuses on the war's first all-black volunteer company unit, whatever you'd call them. And the movie stars Matthew Broderick, which I always found odd, but somehow works. For some reason, whenever I watch this movie, and I've probably seen it at least 4 times in my life, I'm not surprised that he's on screen because I know this as the movie that Matthew Broderick's in called Glory, but it always takes me a little bit of time to get used to his face on screen in a historical setting with that weird Van Dyke mustache.
It's the
beard
mustache
combo.
Yeah.
For sure. Movie also stars a pretty young Denzel Washington, and if you need your 80s Carrie Elwes fix because you watched Princess Bride too much, you could try this movie, although they're very different vibes. Glory and Princess Bride, for sure. But it's a good one. And if you like history, you want to see a bunch of guys go to battle, check out Glory.
Glory is so good. Glory's really good. It's a better movie than my 520, which is The Worst Person in the World from 2021. We talked about it on the show. It's about a woman in Oslo, and it covers, a few years of her life and kind of her relationships, her career, personal growth, all that kind of stuff. And it's very well kind of crafted. This modern kind of personal drama, and it has some surrealist elements to it that are really welcome, and I thought it was a great little film. So, The Worst Person in the World.
Good. I remember that movie. My 522, it didn't stick with me as it did for you, so that's okay. My 522 is The Woman in the Window, the 1944 version, not the 2022 version we watched, which I did not care for.
So bad.
Yeah, but that was my old 471. So instead, let's talk about a new movie. My new 288, Klaus from 2019. This is another Christmas movie that has become a classic amongst my family. What we do at Christmas is we make a list of all the movies we want to watch. In December, we'll write them all down on this chalkboard and then try and work through our way through that list throughout the month of December. So it's a fun way to spread out your Christmas movies over 30
very
days.
organized of you.
Well, you have to have a list and a schedule. If you're just going to pick a movie and watch it, that's just chaos.
I guess.
So Klaus is a bit of a Santa Claus origin story. The setup is kind of weird. A mailman is in like, I don't know. It seems to be it doesn't take place in a specific spot, but it seems to be like in the 19th century. This mailman is sent to the farthest northern reaches of his country to organize a mail service. In this city, there are two warring families he can't control, so he decides to start having all the kids write letters to this mysterious toy maker to sort of create a mail service there. And then from there, Santa Claus is created. It's another heartwarming movie. The animation is beautiful, and it's 3D animated, but they give it a 2D look in kind of how they do the sunlight and the shading. And I look forward to watching it every year.
I don't know how to link that to my next one, so I'm not going to. My 521 from 1984, Electric Dreams. This is a comedy. I think it wants to be a comedy. It's a weird one. It's basically this guy buys a computer. He takes it home. He's setting it up. This is in 1984, so like people don't have personal computers, or they're starting to get them, but it's like very early days. Buys a computer, he takes it home. He accidentally spills champagne on it, and the computer becomes sentient. Meanwhile, the guy who bought the computer is like has a crush on his neighbor, who is played by Virginia Madsen, very young Virginia Madsen, very attractive Virginia Madsen, and he gets into a competition with his computer for the affection of his neighbor. It's a weird movie, but really quirky in a fun and interesting way. It's also scored by Giorgio Moroder, who did what's the
Scarface.
last? Did he do Scarface?
Oh yeah, he did Scarface.
Okay, he did Scarface. I was thinking the Never Ending Story. He did the Never Ending Story. Yeah, I think so.
Very similar movies.
Yeah. It's just a weird movie because it like the part that I've described is like the comedic part. Like it gets pretty dark because the computer like literally tries to kill him over this woman. And so it goes places, not like really dark, but like dark in a 1984 low budget comedy kind of way. But it's super fun, especially if you kind of like B movies, because that's what this is. Electric Dreams from 1984.
Sounds like Weird Science. Is it a little darker than Weird Science?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Well, sounds interesting. My 521 is a movie that has been mentioned twice already today. All three of us put it on the list. The Banshees of Inisherin.
That's a bingo.
I think we all agree this film exists in the sweet spot of between the 500 and 550.
I think Kyle put it higher, right?
Yeah, so I mentioned it, but it's actually in my 400s because it bumped something else out. So
He screwed
too
up.
high, too high.
I just watch movies that I liked better, so I had to move them around.
Kyle made a mistake in his list. He's got to adjust it now.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, Banshees of Inisherin. It's been talked about. It's good.
Well, Zach, we were 2 away from a bingo, you and I, because
Wow.
my 521 is 1955's Rafifi.
Amazing.
Yeah, just 2 off. Nothing to add. Great heist movie. Yeah, the actual heist, as you said, all done in silence. Check it out.
Well, that kind of sounds like you're ordering me to do it. I don't want to.
Don't tell me what to do.
If you're going to tell me what to do, I'm less interested.
Speaking of movies to check out, you can't go wrong with my number 520. It's Fury from 2014, the tank movie starring Brad Pitt. This movie also has John Barenthal in it and Michael Pena and Shia LaBeouf, who literally knocked out his tooth for this movie for some reason. Yeah, I mean, it's a World War II set movie about guys in a tank brigade and how morally compromised they are. I think they're jaded because they've been in the war for a while, and they get a new recruit, and they're trying to break him in. I would say, movie's directed by David Ayer, who is definitely hit and miss with me. Like Sabotage is awful, Tax Collector is awful, Suicide Squad, the original one, is awful, but Fury, End of Watch, maybe even Bright, all good movies in my opinion.
Cool. Well, my 520 is Avatar: The Way of Water. That movie just really stuck with me. It was quite an accomplishment, I think. It was really good. I liked it way better than the original Avatar.
Agreed. My 520 is Get Carter. That's my old 470. So James, just remember 520 or 519 is next for you. My replacement movie is my new 281, Licorice Pizza from 2021. This is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. In this movie, Alana Haim plays a woman in her early 20s who befriends a high school kid named Cooper Hoffman. This movie takes place in the 70s in like Los Angeles area. Cooper Hoffman is a child star, and he's just sort of a entrepreneur go-getter. And throughout this movie, their friendship and lives keep intersecting through almost episodic moments. There is an overall storyline, but really it feels like each moment is just sort of contained within itself. I thought this was a really charming movie. I really liked the 70s aesthetic to it, and really was enthralled by these characters and the world they were living in and all the different side characters they encountered throughout the movie.
I like that movie too. My number 519 is from 2019. It's Calm with Horses. But movie I'm shocked Zach hasn't seen because he loves horse movies.
I do. It sounds great.
This is one of them. You should watch this movie because you also like Barry Keoghan, and Barry Keoghan is central to this movie. It's a gangster movie that is tangentially related to horses for sure. But a really good one that I loved. It's an odd movie that like centers on like low-level gangsters and somehow gives them all an emotional weight. They're not just like fodder for gangster stories, gangs and gangster stories. They're real fleshed out people. And that's why I liked the movie Calm with Horses.
Definitely want to check that out. My 519 is a documentary I talked about recently somehow. I don't remember why. But it's difficult to watch movies. It's The Histories du Cinema 3B: A New Wave. Yep. So this is a Jean-Luc Godard documentary that covers the history. It covers the French New Wave. Basically, it's a series of documentaries. It's about film history. And Jean-Luc Godard was a huge part of the French New Wave. And it's amazing to see what he has to say about it. This is my favorite by far of the series. And it's really well crafted and well made. And you can find it on YouTube if you're interested. It is challenging documentary. It's not going to spoon feed things to you. I believe this one talks about a couple of French films that I really, really care for. And so I like it a lot. So it is my number 519.
All right. My 519 is 1932 Scarface, the original. But that's my old 469. So instead, we're going to talk about my new 255, 1993's Robin Hood Men in Tights. It's directed by Mel Brooks and stars Cary Elwes. This is a Robin Hood parody movie in the style of Mel Brooks, and it is pretty funny. This movie is definitely a takedown on Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, which came out 2 years before. There's a lot of direct references to that movie. And I think this movie is better than Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. Even the action in this movie is more enjoyable to watch, the sword fighting, the swashbuckling, than Prince of Thieves itself. And I think this is actually the second best Robin Hood movie I have ever seen, only behind The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn.
My number 518 is from 2023, one of the newest of the movies on my list. Don't have much to add about Blackberry from 2023 that we didn't discuss back in June. Go check out that episode for full thoughts. But I will read my one-line Letterboxd review. I wrote, "Now this is how you make a semi-true brandography." And I stand by that.
Great. Well, that's fantastic, James. My number 518 is Soft and Quiet from 2022. This is the film. It follows a group of women in real time. It's ostensibly a oneer as they go from a group of women at like a potluck club meeting to just being full on white supremacist Nazis. And it's harrowing horror film because of how realistic the violence and the escalation happen. And I think it's really well acted and really compelling. And I don't think a lot of people have heard of it, but Soft and Quiet is definitely good if you like oneers, if you like thrillers, if you like tense racial drama and escalation and all that kind of stuff. It's really good. So Soft and Quiet.
You recommended that to me, and I will watch it this year. I think that was one of your
this year.
challenges. Yeah.
I love
nice.
tense racial drama.
Well, you did watch In the Heat of the Night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I watched Soft and Quiet too. I watched that.
Yeah.
I saw it. It was 2.5 for me.
My 518 is a 2022 movie called Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Was this on your list already, James, or have you seen this yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. I'm going to keep bringing this up until you see it because I don't want to overhype it, but I think it's going to be better than you expect.
That's a good way to overhype it.
Yeah.
Tell me repeatedly I have to watch it and keep saying it's better than I should expect.
So this is the sequel to Puss in Boots, which came out like over a decade ago in the Shrek universe. I didn't care about Puss in Boots when it came out back then, and I didn't really care about this movie until I heard that it's actually good, and it is. Antonio Banderas voices Puss in Boots again. In this movie, he has spent 8 of his 9 lives and goes on a quest to make a wish to get his lives back. He teams up with, I think it's Penelope Cruz or Selma. I should look this up. I don't have it in front of me. He teams up with another character from the previous movies, apparently, is also being pursued by John Mulvaney's Little Jack Horner, as well as Florence Pugh is Goldilocks and her 3 bears. And this movie is doing more with 3D animation than it needs to, in a good way. So it's being creative with animation. And it's also, I think, telling an interesting story about like what is sort of the purpose of life. Like in a kid's movie, it's dealing with like what's important in life as Puss realizes he only has the one life left. And he starts to think about what really matters to him. So it's a kid's movie that can easily be enjoyed by adults. And I have enjoyed this movie multiple times in the last year or so.
Wow, you've seen it multiple times.
I have an 8-year-old son.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
you didn't sit down to watch it yourself multiple times.
I have sat down to watch it with him twice.
Mhm.
He's watched it more than that. So
Gotcha.
he's
right.
technically 7, but he turns 8 in like a couple weeks.
I was
so.
going to say, I thought he was 7 and I was embarrassed that I did not know he was 8.
No, I'm rounding up because he's so close to being 8. So
Okay.
yeah.
My number
James.
5, yes. Oh, you were telling me to go.
Go.
My number 517 is from 1926. Maybe one of the oldest films on my top 600 list. The General, which is a Buster Keaton movie that Zach, I think, assigned me to watch at some point because I hadn't seen a Buster Keaton movie.
Yeah.
And I think this was a good recommendation. I enjoyed it, despite the fact that, the older the film, less likely I'm going to like it, I would say. I mean, this movie is just from like a historical perspective. Like there's not much to the story, I would say, but just you watch it and you just are in awe of what they were able to accomplish with just practical tools and, human inventiveness, I would say. And on top of that, I think Buster Keaton is funny in like a very slapsticky, over the top kind of way. And I enjoyed the experience of watching it and wouldn't mind watching more, although I haven't exactly taken that on, under my own motivation. So I don't know. I'm sure you guys have recommended me another one before, but if not The General, what else should I watch?
The
For Buster
Navigator.
Keaton?
Yeah, from Buster Keaton.
Oh, he's got so many. I mean, a lot of them are really great.
1 week. I really like 1 week. That's a short. That's like 20 minutes long.
All right.
Sherlock Jr. is really good.
Oh, Sherlock Jr. Yeah. Not Steamboat Willie. It's Steam something.
Steamboat something Jr.
Steamboat Bill Jr.
That one's really fun. He does underwater stuff in like a Jacques Cousteau kind of like submersible, astronaut outfit. It's great. Our Hospitality's good.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. A lot of these are on YouTube also, so they're easy to find.
Yeah, especially if you YouTube Plus, James. Then you
I
can
don't
watch
have
without
YouTube
ads.
Plus. I have YouTube Premium.
Oh,
I don't know what
That
YouTube
sounds-
Plus is.
that sounds even more premium than Plus.
Considering
guys
there's
don't-
no such thing as YouTube Plus.
You don't use like ad blocker for YouTube, so you can just avoid the ads.
You have ad blocker on your phone?
Not on my phone, but on my computer, where I watch YouTube like a normal person.
Yeah, a normal person watches on their computer. You're right, Kyle. I think it's just as normal to watch YouTube on a phone as it is on a computer.
Well, my 517 is Lion, and this is actually the first movie that dropped from my top 500 into my top 600. So I've talked about it before. So instead, I'm going to talk about a new entry at 492. It's The Woman King from 2022. This stars Viola Davis, and it's great. It tells about this nation where the women form like the elite army, and they overthrow some like slavers, and it's so good. So The Woman King.
My 517 also stars Viola Davis. It's Widows, but I already discussed this as my old 468. So instead, I'm talking about my new 249, 1965's The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. This is a Richard Burton film where he plays a British spy agent. I guess it's like M6 or something like that. And he is sent on a final mission to pretend to be a defector to Soviet Russia. I think he's in East Germany, East Berlin for this. So he pretends he's defecting, and this is part of their plan to get information. But as his new double life goes on, he starts to wonder, can he trust his home country? And who is really in control here? Is it him? Is it the Russians? Is it his own country? And a lot of spycraft ensues. This is my favorite kind of spy movie. I enjoy things like Mission Impossible and James Bond, but not because of the spycraftness of them. Like those are more action movies that throw in some spy thrillers. But this is the kind of movie where it's just about information. And what true spycraft is what do you know and what do you know that your enemy knows? And this movie is just all about knowledge and who can you trust. And there's lots of double crossing. Very little action in this movie. In these kinds of movies, when a gun is fired, it's deliberately and it's to kill. So if you like just a stone cold spy movie, check out The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
I'm into that. Never seen it. My number 516, a movie I have seen from 1947, Black Narcissus,
Yes, awesome.
which is a nun movie. That is great. I think I talked about it on a recent Last 10 Top 10, so you can listen to that for full thoughts. Just know that like movies from this time period are typically not my bag. And Zach kept mentioning this movie for like a decade. And I eventually got it on Blu-ray in a lot with other movies that I actually cared about, and then watched this one just because I had it. And not that I was wrong, but I shouldn't have waited so long for sure, because this is a good one. And I really enjoyed it.
Very cool. Well, my 516 is Enter the Dragon, but it's a movie that had dropped from my top 500. So instead, I'm going to talk about my 474, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from 1964.
the stop animation movie.
Yes, yeah. This
Nice.
is the claymation Christmas classic starring the titular Rudolph. And this movie's great. It just gives me warm, hot cocoa vibes, and I like it a lot.
Not to hold your feet to the fire, but is that a movie?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a movie.
Yeah,
Maybe
my
a
feet are.
TV special.
I mean, what is a movie, James?
Not like a half an hour TV special.
It's not a half an hour.
It's
And,
not. It's a
just
full
because-
runtime.
What
I don't think that's
is-
a movie.
I'm going to defend Zach. Zach has shorts on
Okay.
his list.
Yeah, I have
Right,
short
but-
films.
Sure, but this was not
It's
that.
47 minutes.
Right, because
Which is
the
not a
because it was made for TV. That's why it's 47 and not like an odd runtime.
Well, it was not theatrically like released. I will say that, but it doesn't present like a TV episode of some anthology show. It's like a one-time event, which is very similar to a movie.
I'm on Team Zach on this.
I
one.
don't
I'll
think
allow it.
that's a movie.
James, do you say this is a TV show? Is that what you think?
It's a TV special.
TV
The
special?
holiday
What-
special that was made for TV at the length of TV with commercials.
well, it's
Was
not
never
a half
played
an
in
hour.
a movie theater. Wasn't released by a studio, small studio or large.
I just think that I think that not many people are rewatching TV things
In a movie theater because
to
it
this
was never
to
released
this
in a
at
movie
home
theater.
to this day, right? People rewatch this at Christmas time. And it's not like people are rewatching like the Bob Hope Christmas special.
I agree. It's a good holiday TV special that people rewatch. That does not make it a movie.
And I also watch it off of a DVD, which is also how I watch many movies.
All right. I'll let it go. It's your list. You can do what you want on it. But
I think in these crazy times with streaming,
Crazy
it's very
times.
confusing. It's very confusing what is a movie and what is television.
I agree.
What is truth?
Yeah.
You have your truth. I have my
The
truth.
only thing we can be positive of that is not TV is HBO.
It's not
Okay.
TV. It's HBO.
Exactly.
Well, Zach, I think it's fine because my 516 is season 4, episode 2 of the.
That would be amazing.
No, my 516 is Film Worker, which is a great documentary about Stanley Kubrick's right-hand man, Leon Vitali. But I spoke about that already for 467. So instead, a new movie on my list at 241, 1998's Blade. Not sure how this movie got missed the first time around, but it's on here now. This stars Wesley Snipes as a vampire hunter. He's half vampire himself. He's a daywalker called Blade. Stephen Dorff, who was mentioned last episode, plays the main vampire Nemesis. And Wesley Snipes must hunt these vampires using swords and 1990s action fighting, all set to a electronica soundtrack. This movie had everything I loved when I was 15 years old when this movie came out. And I rewatched it recently and it hit all the right spots. And like, why is this not in my top list? It's totally on there now. What I found most interesting watching this again is how much of the action is kind of like wire fu martial arts and reminded me of The Matrix, even though this movie came out a year before The Matrix. So I think you see a little precursor to where we were going with wire fu just a year later.
My number 515 has no wire foo in it from 1974.
I'll be the judge of that.
The parallax view. I don't think it does anyway. This is a political thriller, I would say. Slow cinema movie until the very end. Kind of a pot boiler. Definitely has like a 70s feel to it, good or bad, in the first half, and then it like really picks up as they head towards an inciting incident, I would say. I wasn't enjoying it to begin with from my memory. Like I was kind of like, is this ever going to go anywhere? And then when it does, it really paid off for me. So for those reasons, it sticks in my memory and makes my list. The Parallax View.
Nice. Well, my number 515 is The Wages of Fear, but it was a movie that was in my top 500. It dropped down. So instead, I'm going to talk about my 439, which is 2021's Dune. This is directed by Denis Villeneuve and stars Timothée Chalamet. I'm currently reading Dune, the book, in preparation for the sequel to come out. And I really like the story, the plot, and this movie I thought was really well crafted. It's an epic story, hard to explain everything what's going on screen, and it did a great job. And I'm very excited for part 2.
Yeah, I'm bummed that part 2 got pushed to next year.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah. Studios, pay your talent. There, I broke the strike right there. You guys can thank me later.
I don't know if that's breaking the strike.
I ended the strike.
Oh, you ended it. Okay.
Yeah, I told the studios what to do, and they capitulated.
They're clearly going to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, they capitulated.
David Zaslav listens to Cinereelists. He and Bob
Is that
Iger.
the first time we've used the word capitulated on the podcast?
I'm sure. James, there's probably got to be a way to pull the entire like transcript of this podcast and then to search it, right?
I'm sure there's a way. I'm not going to do that just to see if we've said the word capitulated.
I think the people want to know.
Yeah. James, will you just give in to his demands?
No.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. My 515 is a 2018 movie called Her Smell. This stars Elizabeth Moss as a punk rocker who is dealing with sobriety or the lack thereof while trying to write new music with her band. And this movie is it's challenging to watch just because Elizabeth Moss's character is so reprehensible at times and goes between you sympathize with her and then she just pushes everyone away through her actions, including the viewer. This movie's only told through like maybe 5 or 6 scenes. And it's 2 hours long. So like each scene lasts 15 to 20 minutes. And they're not oneers, but they're usually long. Like each moment is a very long shot as the camera is following her around, either like, you know, in a studio or the backstage of a concert. And you're just slowly watching Elizabeth Moss's character unravel throughout this movie until she hits rock bottom. But it's an incredible performance from her. Worth checking out.
All right. I'll do that.
You've seen it.
I'll do it again.
See, I'm like 3 for 3 right now, guys. I'm just telling people what to do, and they're listening.
My number 514 is Kyle's 20th favorite movie of all time, Beau is Afraid.
Nice.
Which is great. I mean, Ari Aster, he's just a weird genius, and I liked this movie in all of its weirdness.
Cool. My 514 is How Green Was My Valley, which is a movie I've talked about before because it dropped out of my top 500. So instead, I'm going to talk about my 438, which is Hair. And that is a musical from 1979 about hippies that join the Vietnam War. And it is just I love this I love this musical. I think it's really fun and poignant. It has the Age of Aquarius in it. as a big musical number. I really like Hair a lot. So Hair is my 438.
My 514 is A Separation, which I already discussed because it's my old 466. So instead, new to my list at 229 is Thief from 1981. This is a Michael Mann movie starring James Caan as a safecracker who teams up with a local gangster for like one last big score because he has this vision of retiring. James Caan's character has a vision board in this movie, which I think is pretty funny for 1981. And the gangster decides he likes James Caan's services too much and is not going to let him go after that first safe crack. So James Caan now needs to navigate this underground criminal world he did not expect to get involved in. The gangster is played by Robert Prosky, who plays the kindly station owner in Mrs. Doubtfire. And it's really interesting seeing him in Mrs. Doubtfire as kind of like this kinder, older gentleman who runs a TV station. And then in Thief, 10 years before that, where he is just a monster of a character. Two very different performances from the same actor. But Thief is super cool, super stylized, and a great Michael Mann thriller.
Cool. My number 513 is Creed from 2015, which used to be in my top 500. So we're not going to talk about that. We're going to instead talk about Titan from 2021, which entered my top 500 at number 475.
Titan.
Titan. Weird movie.
Do you recommend this for everybody, James? Is this a wide?
No, I would not call this a wide release film or general audience movie. Hard movie to watch, but if you like David Cronenberg films, you'll be fine with Titan for sure. It's like a body modification / body transmogrifier. I forget what you call it. Body
horror?
Sure. It's not really a horror movie, but sure. Okay. Body modification type stuff. It's a tough one. It's a tough movie, I would say, but an interesting one with a lot of style to it and really strong central performance from an actress whose name I can't pronounce. And really well made, but not a tough movie, just a movie I wouldn't recommend to my mom. Let's say that.
Yeah. Well, my 513 is a movie I wouldn't recommend to my mom. It's They Live. But that was in my top 500. So instead, I'm going to talk about my 392, which has already been mentioned, The Last Duel from 2021.
That's a bingo.
Nice.
Yeah. This movie's really good. Did all three of us mention it?
Mm-hmm. On this episode? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the second one that all three of us have talked about. That's so interesting. It's great. I really like it a lot.
My 513 is Good Night and Good Luck, which is my old 466. So instead, I'm going to talk about a movie I would recommend to my mom. I think she's actually seen it. 1972's Sleuth. This movie stars Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine in a two-hander. Michael Caine is the lover of Laurence Olivier's wife. So Laurence Olivier invites Michael Caine over for an insurance scam so they can both make off with a fortune, and then things go from there. I discussed this movie quite extensively in a recent top 10 last 10. I think it was my number one of that top 10 last 10. So go check out our most recent last 10 top 10 for more of my take on Sleuth.
My number 512 used to be my 500th favorite movie of all time, but has since slipped 12 slots. To 512, it's Duel from 1971, Steven Spielberg's first movie. We're not going to talk about that, though, because this is in my 500 originally. Instead, we're going to talk about The Northman, which entered my top 500 at number 440. This movie, directed by Robert Eggers, stars Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, Anya Taylor-Joy, amongst others. Willem Dafoe is insane in this movie. And it's a Viking movie of sorts, I would say, about a guy who's trying to save his mother and also avenge his father. It's very wacky and super violent, very stylized in its presentation, and also one of my favorites from 2022.
Cool. Instead of talking about my 512 Under the Skin, because it dropped out from my top 500, I'm going to talk about my 375 Top Gun Maverick.
That's another one.
Yep.
Top Gun
And
Maverick.
Yeah, no, this is a different one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
It's
no
Top
colon.
Gun Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick from 2022. We've talked about it already. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. Well, I'm going to be different and actually talk about my 512 because it is a new movie I've not discussed before. It's 2006's Paprika. This is an anime film by Satoshi Kon, who did another movie that people have heard of that I cannot think of right. Oh, Perfect Blue. That's the movie he's also is famous for. This movie, a inventor has created a machine that allows people to enter each other's dreams. And someone is using this nefariously to combine everyone's conscious into one, basically having the same dream invade them all. And a young therapist named Paprika has to traverse everyone's consciousness to find this person and separate them from each other before every person becomes one, essentially. Some people say that this is the movie that Christopher Nolan ripped off for Inception. I would not call it a ripoff. There's definitely some parallels having to do with, shared consciousness and dreamlike states, but it's not the same idea as Inception. But this is an animated film with some pretty striking imagery that I think you can enjoy.
My number 511 is another film that dropped out of my top 500. Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. Replacing it in the slot 386 is the aforementioned RRR from 2022. I've seen RRR twice now, and that's saying something considering it's only been around for a year and it's 4 hours long or something like that. Three hours and some change long. And I love this movie. I find it very watchable. It's told in very clear segments, I would say. It even has an intermission in the middle. And yeah, it's a fun movie to me, and also just one that feels like it's having fun with itself as it's playing out. And I really enjoy it.
Cool. My 511 was mentioned, I believe, last episode. It is Triangle of Sadness from 2022. And this is satire, dark comedy, and it's very effective. It's great. It's funny. It has a lot to say. Some of it is easier to articulate than others. I liked it a lot.
My 511 is Collateral, but this is my old 465. So instead, a new addition to my list, and a movie I must have overlooked when I was making this list originally, at 207, The Truman Show, 1998, starring Jim Carrey. In this movie, Jim Carrey plays Truman, who is the unwitting participant in a reality show where he is the star, but he is not aware that he is in a reality show. He lives in this giant dome that's all manufactured, and he starts to question his reality as this movie goes on. It's a great performance from Jim Carrey as well as the rest of the cast. And it's a movie that I really think if this was released now, the whole QAnon red pill crowd would latch onto this movie of question reality because nothing's real. So I'm kind of glad this movie came out pre-internet conspiracy theories.
My number 510 is a movie from 2016 titled Under the Shadow, which is great.
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's like a little thriller horror film. More thriller than horror, I would say, but it definitely has those touches about a woman and her child living in Iran during the Iran-Iraq war. And at the time, Iraq was firing missiles into wherever she lives. I forget which city, but
I
just
think
kind of,
Tehran, the capital.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, just kind of random missile attacks, and there's still people living in the city. So when they hear the siren, they need to go hide, type of thing. So they're living this kind of stressful existence, I would say. And over the course of the film, her husband gets sent to serve in the military. And so he leaves the picture and he's trying to convince her to kind of flee Tehran because it's too dangerous. And she doesn't really want to. And weird things start happening with her daughter as well as a neighbor kid, and other stuff happens that I don't want to give away for those of you who haven't seen it, but just know that it's a good one that lives in a world that like is not, the English speaking world, I would say, with politics. It's kind of like a separation. Separation is a drama about a divorce, right? But it's in a completely different culture. That's kind of what Under the Shadow is. It's like it's a typical thriller with horror tinges shell, but with an interesting edge to it as far as how the characters react to the specific cliched situations. And that's what makes it interesting and unique. The name itself is kind of like, it has a double meaning for sure. If you think about how women in some of these cultures are treated or expected to act. I think it's one of those that rises above your standard thriller horror fare. Not only that, 84 minutes from beginning to end. 84 minutes. Can't do much better than that as far as a shot in the dark type of watch. Under the Shadow.
Nice. Okay, my 510 is The Sweatbox, which is a movie that dropped out of my 500. I've talked about it before, so instead I'm going to talk about my 288 Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse.
Nice.
From 2023. Such a great movie. The style is so cool. They pack so much punch into this film. It's just endlessly inventive and entertaining, and they nail the characters, and they have emotion and real relationships along with the style, and it's great. So definitely worth watching.
My 510 is a 2023 movie. This is John Wick: Chapter 4. So the fourth installment in the John Wick franchise. It's probably my third favorite John Wick movie, if I was to rank them all on the spot. But this movie gives me what I want from John Wick. I've got great fights, bringing in other martial artists like Donnie Yen into the world, expanding the world of John Wick, and then that staircase scene. One of the best scenes of the year so far is the staircase scene from John Wick Chapter 4.
Certainly one of the longest action scenes of the year. That scene just kept going and going and going.
But it worked. Like it's like a joke. They just kept giving you the same thing over and over again, where it got to be so ridiculous it was working again.
Sure. Maybe. I don't know if I agree with that, but
Fair.
I'm still thinking about it. My number 509 is from 1987. It's The Monster Squad, which fell out of my top 500. So instead, we're going to talk about Triangle of Sadness.
Hey.
At number 380. This movie came out in 2022. I think Zach and I were just 2 off from this little update. Where did it land on your list?
511.
All right. So I have it a good 120 something odd higher on my list. But
yeah,
regardless, Triangle of Sadness, really great movie that kind of has 3 chapters to it. And I all find them equally kind of unique and interesting in their own ways. My number 509.
There's one movie that none of us have mentioned that I think will be on all of our lists. And so it could be a true triple bingo. So we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, is it a bingo if it's in our list, but in the top 500 somewhere? Like way away from each other? I don't think so.
if we all mention it, I'm calling it a triple bingo. A true triple bingo, or triple bingo bingo, would be if it's at the same spot in all of our lists.
Sure.
Oh, that's
this is
not gonna happen.
Gonna happen.
I mean, because everything I'm talking about now is pretty much like
Yeah,
200 up.
it's
Yeah,
possible. It's possible.
possible.
My 509, guys. We only have 10 more to
Nice.
complete our top 600.
It's not a 10
And-
more.
It's not Nocturnal Animals from 2016 because that I've already talked about in my top 500. It's dropped since. So I'm going to talk about my number 270, a movie we watched for this show called Tick, Tick, ... Boom! ! From 2021. Tick Tick Boom is a musical. Tells the story of the writer and songwriter and creator of Rent. And I find this movie so charming and so likable. And the music is so good. And this movie's great. I really, really enjoy this musical. And I think the music is all great. And Andrew Garfield is great. I think I like everything I've seen him in. So Tick Tick Boom, awesome movie from 2011.
2011, 2011, 2021,
1811.
1811. Okay.
Yeah.
I must have not been on the episode for Tick Tick Boom because I've not seen that movie.
You got to check it out, man. Do you like musicals?
Sure.
Do you like movies?
Typical, like, cool guy band teacher, you know what I mean?
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
do like movies. Yeah.
Check it out.
A movie that I do like is my 509 from 1951. This is Ace in the Hole. This is another Billy Wilder movie starring Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas plays a washed up reporter or like a newspaper writer who is in a small town out west and learns of a man trapped in a cave. And he realizes he could turn this into a money-making opportunity for him if he keeps cranking out articles. So he deliberately takes steps to prolong this man being in this cave. And a whole media circus and eventually literal circus forms around this event. So this movie is definitely a precursor to something like Nightcrawler about making your own news, but also a commentary on the public's obsession with story and hype, even in the 1950s.
Cool. My number 508 is from 1954. It's Seven Samurai, which did not fall out of my top 500. It's squarely at this number. This is Akira Kurosawa's classic samurai movie that inspired Star Wars. At least that's what I know it for. I'm sure other people think it probably holds more historical value than that. But in my mind, that's why I was motivated to watch it. I remember it being really slow moving in the first bit, but it does come around at the end. And I enjoyed it in general, and I'm looking forward to rewatching it someday.
Okay, well, my 508 is a movie that dropped from my top 500. I'm thinking of Ending Things from 2020. Instead, I'm going to talk about my 269, Everything Everywhere All at Once from 2022. This is the film that I am making a prediction will show up on both of your lists.
That's a fair
in the
prediction to make.
Coveted 8 next slots that we're going to talk about. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a multiverse movie with heart. It is truly bonkers, absolutely zany. It's everything is a Chekhov's gun, which is incredible that it can meaningfully wrap up and use every single ridiculous thing that it brings up. And this movie is clever, creative, funny, poignant. It's got great acting, great writing. It's wonderful. That's why it's my 269th favorite film of all time.
Well, my 508 is MASH, but that fell out of my top 500. So instead, a new movie I'm going to talk about is my 205, 2016's Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping.
Nice.
Another movie I watched because of you two. And thank you very much for this movie. This is a Lonely Island movie. It is a parody of like a pop documentary. It's hilarious. There are so many moments. I could just say things like The Wolves, and you guys will start laughing, or Seal, or Bin Laden. All those things.
I haven't seen it since the theater, so I won't laugh at it. 'Cause I don't
Okay.
remember
Well,
any of
Zach
those
will
references.
Zach will definitely laugh at the moments. I've seen this movie a couple times. It's funny every time I watch it. It totally holds up, and I look forward to watching it again in the future.
I definitely need to rewatch that. And also, you're welcome. My number 507 is Silence of the Lambs, which dropped out of my top 500. So let's talk about Avatar: The Way of Water, which entered my top 500
Hey.
at number 347. Loved Way of Water. I saw it twice in a movie theater, and despite the fact that it's really long, it still wowed me the second time. Even like the parts that drag just a little bit towards the beginning when they're like, world building are just magical. And while I don't think it's like a particularly well-written movie or even well acted, just the visuals themselves, I think it says something that they're just like, at least for my brain, spellbinding, I would say. And so, yeah, I don't know if this is going to last forever. I saw a tweet this week that made fun of Spawn. Remember the 90s comic book movie Spawn? And like
I
the
do.
last scene is a CG representation of hell.
Yes.
It's really awful in like a 90s CG kind of way. I can't imagine that will ever happen to a movie like Avatar: The Way of Water, but who knows? Maybe in 30 years, it'll look like the ending to Spawn. But for right now, to my eyes and my perception, it's pretty close to like perfect digital filmmaking, or as close to perfection as you can get. So, Avatar: The Way of Water, now a top 500 movie for me.
Awesome. Great to hear. My 507 is Magic in the Moonlight, but that's a movie that dropped out of my top 500. So instead, I'm going to talk about my 262, Licorice Pizza.
Hey.
This is the P.T. Anderson film. I just like P.T. Anderson films. He's a good director. Licorice Pizza is a nostalgic look at a life I never lived. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. So it's my 507. It's my 262.
Well, my 507 is Downfall, the movie about the last days of Hitler, but that fell on my old 500. So instead, a very similar movie I'm going to talk about, my new 187, Barbie from 2023. We discussed this movie a lot a couple episodes ago. This movie has stuck with me. I'm looking forward to watching it again. I know my wife is looking forward to watching it again. It's on VOD now, waiting for the price to come down a little bit. If it was a top 100 movie, maybe I'd pay the full price for it, but it's in the top 200, so we'll wait. And if you want to hear my thoughts on Barbie and not on what I'll pay for movie rental, go check out our episode where we discuss Barbie and Oppenheimer.
So you like Downfall better than Schindler's List?
How do you rank? I've sseen Schindler's List once.
Well, I'll tell you how you rank it. You rank it higher than Downfall.
I think Downfall stuck with me better. Which one had more YouTube parodies?
Downfall.
You're right. One does center Hitler more. Barbie better than Schindler's List. James,
Speaking of Hitler, Glenn Ross dropped out of my top 500. Replacing it at number 275 is Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to the first film.
Where's that at? What number is it at?
275.
Wow, I have it at my 288.
Ooh, nice. Pretty close. I mean, this was great. It was I really loved the first movie and couldn't imagine a world where I would enjoy the second one even more. And I'm glad I live in that world.
All right. I'm going to talk about my 506, which is a documentary that Kyle mentioned last episode, The Way I See It, from 2020. And this is a documentary about the photographer, the official photographer of the Obama presidency. And I found it super interesting. And like all these stories about these iconic photos and the amount of access that he had, it's just so fascinating to picture what it would be like to be a fly on the wall in all these situations. So I think it's a great documentary, and it's called The Way I See It.
My 506, a movie I like more than Schindler's List, About Time, but I felt out of my old 500. So instead, I'm going to talk about a movie I like way more than Schindler's List. My 143, the previously mentioned The Northman. Yeah, this is the Robert Eggers Viking movie with Alexander Skarsgård. And I think this movie is a great revenge tale. It's violent. It's not, you said it was wacky, James. I don't call it wacky. It's definitely maybe fantastical and built within like Viking lore. So there
I
are
said
definitely
it was wacky.
Yeah, you described it as wacky at times.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's a weird word to describe this, but it's definitely like built within a mystical world.
Maybe he
I'll
meant
give you
like
that.
with swords, like whacking each other with swords.
Oh, whacking swords. Yes. Yeah.
I'll have to listen back. It doesn't sound like something I said.
That does not sound like something James would say.
Definitely something you said. This movie ends with like two guys fighting naked in a volcano. It's pretty metal
wacky.
movie overall.
Totally
So,
normal movie.
totally normal. But I think The Northman is it's great. It's great. The whole thing is like watching a Mastodon album cover come to life.
That we can agree on.
Yeah.
Totally different movie than The Northman for sure. My number 505 from 2023. It's Barbie. I like Barbie quite a bit. Thought it was super inventive, colorful, fun. All those things on top of having something to say, despite being essentially marketing for a toy. Somehow it's all of those things at the same time, and somehow did it all pretty gracefully, I would say, which is quite an accomplishment. My number 505, Barbie.
Cool. My 505 is Cool Hand Luke, a movie that has dropped from my top 500. And so I'll talk about my 205, almost made it to my top 200, The Rescue, a documentary from 2021. The Rescue, I've talked about a lot on this show, but it is about the rescue of all of those boys that were trapped in a cave in Indonesia, I believe. And it's so gripping. It's good. It's really good. You'll love it. Go see it. The Rescue.
Thailand. Pretty close. Same part of the world. My 505 is Rosemary's Baby, but this dropped out of my top 500. So instead, new to my list at 137. So we're in close to my top 100 here. Brief Encounter from 1945. This is a British romantic drama about a bored housewife who takes the train once a week into town. One day she meets a doctor and they strike up a friendship. And then she starts traveling on purpose every week to town to meet up with him. And their friendship develops into something more emotionally fulfilling. At the same time, she is married and has guilt over the fact that she is maybe not physically cheating on her husband, but definitely forming an emotional bond with another man that's maybe replacing the love she has for her husband. I was expecting this to be like a Cary Grant, Rat-a-Tat's, His Girl Friday kind of movie. But it is not. It is much more contemplative than that. But I think it tells such a fascinating story. It is so well acted. It really has left a mark with me. So that's why it's at my 137.
Nice. My 504th favorite movie is from 1996. It's titled The Ghost and the Darkness, which is a pretty good movie, but not nearly as good as my 175th favorite movie, which is easily Everything Everywhere All at Once from
Ooh.
2020.
What number is that for you?
175.
Okay. All right.
And I think this movie will move up over time. I'm pretty sure. I've seen it twice. And the second time, I'm not going to say I liked it more than the first time, but I found new things to appreciate about it. And the things I already appreciated about it held up. And so I'm assuming because this movie is just so crammed with things to look at and think about and interesting performances to soak in, I think this might be one of those movies that the more you watch it within reason, the more you're going to get out of it. And so I look forward to giving it maybe a year or so before I take a third pass at it. But I'm pretty sure that when I finally do that, I'll get even more out of it. And so great movie. And I can't wait to revisit it often.
Cool. My 504 is Barton Fink, but I've talked about it before when it was in my top 500. Instead, I'll talk about my 204, The Tragedy of Macbeth, the black and white 2021 rendition starring Denzel Washington. And I found this movie to be amazing. I loved it. I thought the black and white was so pretty to look at. The staging so interesting and inventive and small. And Denzel Washington is just really good at Shakespeare. And I liked this rendition quite a bit. So Tragedy of Macbeth, my 204.
Quite
Nice.
a bit refers to a significant amount.
That's how I meant it.
My 504 is The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which is my old 460. So instead, we're going to talk about a new movie to my list. This is a movie I just must have overlooked. Don't know why I'd never ranked it before. At 122, Home Alone. The Macaulay Culkin classic.
Holy crap. It went from nowhere on your list to 122.
Yeah, I just don't know how, like...
You just forgot about it?
I mean, I didn't forget about it, but like I don't think I remembered this movie as well as it I don't remember this movie being as good as it is. I started watching it recently because my son's got into it. It's been another movie in our holiday rotation, and this is a good movie. And it's more than just traps and burglars. Like the traps and burglar, or the burglars are the whole movie. The traps are like maybe the last 15 minutes. This movie is so much more than just setting up traps for bad guys. It's really about this kid who's like doesn't know what to do when his family's gone. You get into Home Alone 2. Home Alone 2 is just traps. Like they said, let's forget the whole like family schmamly stuff. Let's just throw in, set piece after set piece. But I think Home Alone is a classic movie. It's got real heart to it. And I look forward to watching it again next year. As in this year, Christmas.
Sure. Home Alone, my 83rd favorite movie of all time.
So you like it 20, 35 more than I, more or less.
A little more than you do.
Yeah.
A movie I don't like near as much, but still find pretty good, is my number 503 from 1939. Mr. Period Smith Goes to Washington, which is about a guy played by who?
Jimmy
Stewart. Another guy with a very specific vocal affectation, I would say. But this is a movie I can handle it in for sure. This guy, he goes to Congress. Is he elected because somebody dies or something like that? I don't remember what the circumstance.
Yeah. Someone dies and he's appointed.
Right.
As like a temporary.
Right. So he goes to Washington full of like idealism, I would say. Like he's gonna go there. He's gonna be a part of the machine that changes things. He has a rose-colored glasses viewpoint of the political system, I would say. And then he gets to Washington and learns very quickly that that's not how things work in this real world environment. And there's a little bit of comedy and drama and romance in the film, and it all kind of is circled by this performance by Jimmy Stewart, whatever you want to call him. There's a monologue in the movie that's particularly great. It's a little slow, but I enjoyed it. Not to repeat myself, but it's in that sweet spot of movies that I didn't think I like, but maybe I just haven't watched enough of them. And this one fits nicely in that little box. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Cool. My 503 dropped from my top 500. It's Cachet. So instead, I'm going to talk about my 196. Arguably not a film, but it deserves to be here. Derek Delgadio's In and of Itself from 2020.
Oh, yeah.
This is a magical theatrical performance by Derek Delgadio about it's incredible. You really have to see it to understand what it is, but it's emotional. It's amazing. It's personal. He tells these personal stories about himself and other people, and uses magic to do it. He truly kind of elevates it to an art form. It's really beautiful, and I loved it. And that's why it's my 196.
Good pick.
According to Google, In and of Itself is a documentary.
Okay, I will
Sure.
take it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Google. What does Bing say?
I don't know.
Can you dogpile that? I really want to know there. All right. My 503 is the last addition to my top 600. So the last two will be ones that got pushed out. And this is 1981's Body Heat. This is a neo-noir starring William Hurt and Kathleen Turner. William Hurt is a small-town lawyer in Florida, and he meets Kathleen Turner one day to sort of, they have, I guess, kind of a meet-cute. Even though she's married, they start up a torrid affair, and they eventually plot to kill her husband, played by Richard Crenna. This movie is sort of a update of Double Indemnity. It has a similar plot. The biggest difference, though, is, where in Double Indemnity, they'll use innuendo to describe sex, as in like the whole, how fast you're traveling, the whole back and forth with the cop. And this movie will just show the characters having sex because it is a 1980s version of a noir film. I don't know. There's something about Kathleen Turner in the 80s that just, I find her infatuating. And I thought this is a really good movie, kind of an update of a classic noir story. It's a young William Hurt, another favorite actor of mine. Young Ted Danson pops up in this too. I would say if you want to see like a good, not erotic thriller, but like a good 80s version of like how can we modernize the noir genre, Body Heat's a place to start.
Cool. My number 502 is a movie from 2022. It's The Woman King, which I loved. Seen it twice, despite having just been released last year. Viola Davis is amazing in this movie about this group of female warriors who protect their kingdom and their king. They're sworn to protect their kingdom and their king. In a society where like women don't have a whole lot of agency, and so this squad of female warriors is kind of looked at as a place to possibly escape and gain your own freedom as a female in this existence in the 1800s or so, I think. And Viola Davis is amazing in this movie, and if that wasn't enough, she has this supporting cast of female actresses, whatever you want to call them, that is just super deep. Like the roster in this movie is pretty amazing. Pretty much all the people who have speaking parts have interesting things to contribute to the story. And I like the politics of it, the kind of palace intrigue of it all, as well as the romance. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in this movie, and pretty much all of them hit for me. And I think that starts with the cast and the premise. And, not that we haven't seen like Attack Squads or Death Squad movies before, but the fact that they just changed the perspective and really invested in having a different viewpoint I think put this one over the top for me. And I think it's a worthy movie that anybody who likes action films should definitely check out. The Woman King.
Great. My 502 is the aforementioned Paris is Burning from 1990. Such an interesting, great documentary. It really has so much like access to a world that I've just never been a part of, and it's awesome. It's so enlightening and interesting, and it's fascinating to see so much of what is today's culture coming out of the scene. Like words like throwing shade and stuff like that. Like seeing the origin of that kind of stuff is awesome. So I really liked this documentary quite a bit. Paris is Burning, my 502.
My 502 is Red Belt, a movie we discussed rather recently. I must have missed this one when I was reordering this list because it should be higher. But instead, since this fell out of my top 500, instead I'm going to talk about a new movie to my list at 108, just outside my top 100, 2014's Predestination. This movie stars Ethan Hawke as a temporal agent. He is a time-traveling agent who is trying to prevent a catastrophic event from happening. And he must do that by doing a series of time travel events to follow this mysterious killer and look for clues. And this is a movie where I was surprised like every 20 minutes. I mean, it's only 100 minutes long, and every 20 minutes something happens that I did not expect to happen, but it all made sense. I think it's a movie that I need to watch again because there's a lot going on, but enough of it worked for me that it fell out. It's just outside my top 100. I think this is an underlooked time travel movie that maybe not a lot of people have seen, but if you like time travel movies, you definitely need to watch Predestination.
I agree. That's a hidden gem. Is that what they call them?
I would say it's hidden gem. Yeah.
Sure. My number 501 and the last film on our list for this week, on my list anyway, is Dazed and Confused, which is a comedy that I enjoy from Richard Linklater. Also the start of Matthew McConaughey's career. It also has a bunch of other people that you would recognize in this. Joey Lauren Adams, Rory Cochrane, Mila Jovovich is in this movie. And it's a hangout / stoner movie, I would say, about a group of Texas teens in the 70s who are just kind of hanging out over the course of one night. And there's a plot to it, but it doesn't really matter because it's mostly just like, it's a vibes movie, vibes comedy, I would say. And probably the movie that, if Slacker kind of put Richard Linklater on the map with Hollywood people, Dazed and Confused was the movie that put him on the map with like people who go to see movies. You know what I mean? Who will watch them at home type of thing. Like, I think Slacker was kind of an industry breakout, and certainly there was some subgroups that liked Slacker, but Slacker's kind of a hard movie to get into. Whereas Dazed and Confused is kind of a straightforward 70s comedy. 70s set comedy, and works very well for me, and that's why it's my number 501.
Nice. Well, my 501 and last film to talk about today for me is a previously mentioned, but not because it's on the list, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I love Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I think this movie is great. It's a lot of fun. And it's a worthy sequel to the original, which I do like better, James, but Bogus Journey is a lot of fun. So it is.
Did you ever see
501.
Face the Music?
No.
You should see it. I mean, you like the two older movies, so the new one's perfectly watchable.
Oh, no, I definitely saw Face the Music. Sorry, Bill and Ted's Face the Music.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw it.
Not Ingrid Bergman's Face the Music.
Yeah, no, I saw it.
All right. Well, my 501 is The Hunt, which I already discussed in my previous top 500. So instead, talk about the last addition to my list, a movie that broke into my top 100 at number 89, Everything Everywhere All at Once. This movie is incredible. I had no idea what to expect when I saw this movie, and it gave me everything. Everywhere all at once. I came with that on the spot. Not going to lie.
What number?
This is my number 89.
Okay, so that's the highest out of the three of us.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's, for one thing, Michelle Yeoh, it's the performance of a lifetime. You have Ki Hai Kwan coming back right after 30 years not in the business to come back, not just in a well-known and it's a great reintroduction of him, and he does a great job in the movie too of playing like the multiple versions of the same character. I really like Stephanie Sue as the daughter, and it's just everything about this movie worked for me, from the way it handled the multiverse, the way it handled its cinematography, and how it differentiate between each of these universes. The martial arts aspect of it, the weirdness of this movie, the message of this movie. I've seen this multiple times. I saw it with my wife. We had a really fascinating conversation after we saw this because she had a totally different perspective on this movie just based on her life experiences. So I think it's a movie that people can watch and get a different take from. And it's a movie that I look forward to watching again, just because there's so much happening visually and story-wise. I cannot wait to watch it again. I want to get this on 4K, and I feel very confident putting this in my top 100.
Awesome. I think we all agree on that one. Was that the only movie that came out in the last couple years since the last time we did this that entered all three of our top 500?
No. The Last Duel was definitely one that we all had, right?
But
that didn't enter my top 500.
Oh, okay. What about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse?
That did.
Yeah.
Okay,
Zach, did you do The Northman, or is that not like yours?
No.
Okay.
So Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Everything Everywhere All at Once are the two movies that we've seen since the last time we did this that we all consider top 500.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you guys have any other sub 500 movies that shifted that are worth mentioning?
I don't.
Okay.
Do you, James?
I do.
Okay.
Waves moved quite a bit for me. It moved up to 278, which was like 133 spots. Parasite moved 158 spots for me.
Wow.
To 294.
Up or down? Okay.
Up. All these are up. I don't really move movies down. That feels like punishing them. I mean, they kind of naturally get pushed down, right? As like newer movies replace them. So The Lighthouse moved up 73. Palm Springs moved up 225 spots for me to 251. And the biggest move, the last one I'll mention, is La La Land, which entered my top 10 the last time we did this, is now at number 5. My fifth favorite movie of all time. I've seen it 6 times.
What is your 6th favorite movie of all time? What do you like it better than?
6. Yeah, that was a hard decision for sure. And I want to get it right. So I'm going to actually click it to make sure I give you the right information. It's slightly less good than Parenthood at number 4 and slightly better than number 6, City of God.
I didn't realize City of God is your number 6.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it pushed Train Spotting out of the top 10.
Oh, you must be devastated.
I'm not, but those guys are. I can tell.
It's amazing.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode 600 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget to send us your top 600 list to heyguys at cinereelists.com or a top 100. That might be more useful, but if you've got it, send it. Also, check out the video version on YouTube. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Leave us an Apple Podcast review, 5 stars only, or follow us on social media on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on X or Letterboxd at Shaban.
X gonna give it to you.
Never.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
We didn't really talk about next week, so I don't know exactly what we're going to talk
We're gonna do our
about.
top 700.
I mean, the new movie that comes out next week is Expend 4 Bowls. Expend 4 Bowls.
I haven't seen any of the other Expendables.
Well, we should start at the 4th and move backwards.
I've seen one of them. I don't know which one though. I read plot synopses and like, nope, I don't know which one I've seen.
I've seen all 3, and other than the concept of like old battle-hardened guys grouping up together, I couldn't tell you anything about any of them.
Yeah.
Which one has Chuck Norris in it? That's the one I saw.
I don't know.
Actually,
I couldn't tell you that either.
I can look it up then and figure out which one I've seen.
So anyway, I doubt we're going to see that, so we'll have to figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We always do. We'll see you guys there. Thanks for listening. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.